You brought extra today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 17th meeting. It is a regular City Council convening of the Moscow City Council. First on our agenda, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first, but before we get there, just want to let you know there's copies of the agenda in the hallway. There's also several copies. We don't have enough for every single person, but we have several printed copies of the Citizen Budget Guide, since that's on the agenda tonight in the hallway. But first, we always start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have several items on the consent agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 items. These items are considered routine in nature. There are 2 additional committees that meet, and we're just going to I like to take the time to slow down since we have some new faces in the audience to describe how some things work. So the routine things are heard by either the Public Works and Finance Committee or the Administrative Committee. And those 2 committees are made up by 3 of the 6 council members. And so they meet on the 2nd and 4th Mondays at 4 p.m. They are recorded, they are streamed live, they're on our city YouTube channel. And so oftentimes the questions that you may have already been answered at those meetings previously. So we put them on the consent agenda so that the things and the council can also choose to put things that come before those bodies before the full body. Not all are required to, but oftentimes if you have lingering questions, they may have already been answered in the committee hearing previously. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion from Bryce, second from Sandra. Any further discussion? Okay, Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
And Scott.
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Next on the regular agenda, so we always set aside 15 minutes for public comment. And so how that works is I've got a timer to help you keep track of things. We limit it to 15 minutes, and so up to 3 minutes per person. So that's 5 folks who can come. You can come and tell us what's on your mind, share your concerns, what we're doing well. If you want to give some kudos or not, that's fine. But it'll be entered in the public record. We ask that you come and introduce yourself, give us your name and where you reside. And so long as it is not pending before the Board of Adjustment or Planning and Zoning, because those things are considered quasi-judicial, or pertaining to an action item on the agenda tonight, you're able to come up and visit with us. And so I'm imagining a lot of folks are here to talk or listen to the public hearing for the budget. There will be a separate portion where we're able to invite folks up to give your remarks for the budget. So since there's only 2 of these items on here, I will have to gavel you down lightly if it is commentary relating to the budget proposal or the fee resolution for fiscal year 27. So with that, all those caveats in place, anything else goes. So please come to the dais and introduce yourself, and I'll start a little timer and have at it.
Good evening, council, administration, and the public. My name is John Slagboom. I live at 924 East A Street, and I promise you this isn't about the budget or anything on the agenda tonight. In May, the GEM State Housing Alliance sent a professional analysis of Moscow's zoning code to the mayor and all 6 council members. The Alliance is a statewide nonprofit. Its mission is to make it easier to build homes for Idahoans. Its founding director confirmed the May delivery in writing this week. 3 months have passed and the analysis has not been presented, to my knowledge, to be fair, at a single public meeting. There's been no public discussion, and this body knows the organization. At the June 1st meeting, the Alliance's housing calls were called a valuable resource, and the council received the report and, again, to my knowledge, didn't say anything about it. The city then moved in the opposite direction. Ordinance 2026-04 now limits a home to 1 kitchen and bans sinks and bedrooms. We've all talked about this before. That forbids junior accessory dwelling units, a bedroom with a limited kitchen, etc. The Alliance's analysis, that's a tongue twister, names this housing type as one of the lowest cost option a city can allow. So my request is simple. Please direct Planning and Zoning Commission to review Moscow's housing code and identify every requirement that can be relaxed to allow for more building. More building of more homes means more supply, and more supply makes housing more affordable. The GEM state analysis is a ready starting point. It is in your inboxes. I'd encourage everyone to read it, and please put it to work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. And I will respond in this case because I met with Ali Robbie, who is the executive director of the GEM State Housing Alliance. I took a training with her for, this was about 4 hours of a longer training session last week. And I shared with her, there are several things in that analysis. It was not asked for by the city of Moscow. It was an offer. And Moscow is not the only city whose code got reviewed. And there were a handful of things in that analysis that was done by a third-party consultant that's not GEM State Housing Alliance that actually were not accurate, that reflected our code. So we gave her that feedback and she said, well, take a look. So the version that is in your inboxes, there's a handful that don't actually address the changes that Moscow's already made in terms of housing code, and they offered to provide an updated report. So when I visited with Ali in person in Boise on Thursday, we discussed it at length, and I will provide you with the updated version of the GEM State Housing Alliance's recommendation. Okay, who else would like to come and provide public comment? Sure, come to the mic and introduce yourself and where you reside, and I'll start the timer when you get there. And you've got 3 minutes to share what's on your mind.
I'm Linda Hardesty, and I live in Moscow, and we were at the planning and zoning meeting last week about the Harvest Hills subdivision. That's not the subject of this.
Okay.
But at that time, I became aware that the planning and zoning group apparently can only apply existing standards when making a decision. And there are some problems that I raised then that are much broader than that subdivision when you consider all the development that's going on that feeds into Mountain View. Right now, D Street is 1 block either direction from Mountain View in school zones. And those streets are very narrow. Some of the houses have up to 7 vehicles for a 2-car house. And people were raising concerns about existing Harvest Hills because of the amount of on-street parking. Okay, so my concern is that now there's discussion of even moving the high school out there, and the current roads, Mountain View and D Street in particular, are totally inadequate for the traffic they're already getting. If you go down to that intersection when school's in session, traffic backs up for blocks. It's really a mess. And so I would like to see the council considering revisiting some of those standards so that with development, we're considering where that traffic is going and how much parking is available. People are going to have more than 1 car per driveway. And so maybe we need overflow parking or something like that in subdivisions. To my knowledge, nothing like that exists. And I often hear discussions among developers about how minimal the amount of parking has to happen. If you have been behind Gritman on Jackson Street recently with the construction that's going on there, and I think there's like 18 more units or something going in, and a fire truck could never get down that street, Almond Street there. It's just unbelievable. And that's an old section of town. But as we're building new sections, we don't have to build in that problem again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardesty. And I try not to respond to every single public comment, but in this case, I will share.
3 minutes.
I will share, right. I promise we're not eating into the 15 minutes that we set aside. Any new development does have some parking modeling and information that they're required to provide us, as well as like our number one concern is always if there can be a fire apparatus that can get there and operate safely. But Mountain View and D Street, yes, concern is shared. So other public comment. We have time for 3 more folks if they'd like to come. Sure, come on up, introduce yourself and share what's on your mind.
Mayor and Council, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Joyce Johnson, and I reside here in Moscow. I've been a Moscow resident for 23 years. And I believe that all of you here are in positions here to represent each of your constituents, to pass budgets that are in the best interest of your constituents. I'm a self-employed caterer, various other things that I do. I'm a grandmother of 11, and I have 4 children. Over the last 23 years of living here, I've been involved in our community by participating in the University of Idaho's jazz choir, volunteered at the jazz festivals for several years. I've volunteered at the Moscow Welcome Table that's monthly at the 1912 Center, which is a wonderful organization. I've helped children on art projects during the Rendezvous in the Park. I've had a booth at the farmer's market and the winter market for several years selling my sourdough bread and my baked goods. So that's other things I do. I sort of feel like this is a taxation without representation moment. That's my personal opinion.
And so Joyce, I'm just going to jump in. If you want to provide comments that are directly about the budget, I have time to do that during the public hearing, but this is for anything not pertaining to the action items before us tonight. So do you have comments that aren't directly related to the budget hearing tonight?
Okay, say that again.
So the public hearing portion of the budget hearing
Is later?
is later.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I'll
But
continue. Is
but that way you can use a fuller 3 minutes if you want. Since we
I don't think you want that.
I no, we
So,
welcome it. So
come back.
yep, it's only because we have to make sure that in the case of a public hearing where there's like public testimony, that we make sure it's like grouped with the item in front of us. So I would
I
love
was
to have you
quickly
come back
looking
up.
at someone else's minutes. so-
Oh, I love it. Nope, all good, all good. I'll have you come back up in a little bit. Any other folks who would like to come and give any? Yeah, sure. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what's on your mind, so long as it is not about the fee schedule or the budget. And I promise there is time for that, and we will make sure there's adequate time for it. So please introduce yourself, where you live, and what's on your mind.
Yeah, my name is David Pimentel, and I live in Moscow, have for the last 11 years, and on Hayes Street. And we love this community. And one of the things we love about this community is how bicycle friendly and pedestrian friendly it is. I applaud the efforts that have been made to do traffic calming throughout the city, in front of the middle school. The marvelous things there. The traffic circle at 6th Street, Mountain View is marvelous. There is a new traffic circle on Mountain View near the Logos School that somehow was put in without, as near as I can tell, any thought to bicycles or pedestrians. And those of us who bicycle up that route and run there every day find ourselves dodging traffic as we have to run across the middle of that circle because there is no shoulder anymore. There used to be a shoulder there, but when you put in the traffic circle, the shoulder disappeared, and it seems particularly unfortunate where a school is of all places that it wouldn't be designed in a way that was friendly to pedestrians and to bicyclists. And so this may not be the appropriate forum. Maybe I need to go to a transportation committee or something like that. I wasn't sure where to go. So I'm just serving this up here, and I welcome any guidance as to where I should go to bring my concern. But every day I'm out there and I'm thinking, gosh, this is unfortunate and out of character for Moscow, because Moscow's been so great about responding to the public need for that kind of alternative to automobile traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pimentel. You are more than welcome to bring that here, and we can also, I'll visit with staff about that. And if it needs to go to the Transportation Commission, I think you're a few doors down from me. I will come visit with you, and we can go from there. So, okay, excellent. 1, 2, 3. I've got time for 2 more public comments if anyone would like to come to the mic. Going once, going twice. Okay, we're going to close the public comment, and I will say, if you are heartbroken to have not known that this was a thing that we do it every meeting. We always set aside 15 minutes at the start of every single meeting for public comment, and we will let you know if it is something that is quasi-judicial where we are not allowed to. We have to like plug our ears and pretend like we didn't hear it, and we'll tell you where it needs to go to make sure that it's being captured in the public record. So item 3 on our regular agenda is the public hearing for the City of Moscow fiscal year 2027 annual appropriation ordinance with Bill Belknap, and Sarah, our finance director, is also here for any backup questions. But Bill, welcome. And
Thank you, Your
so
Honor.
before we get to the point with public comment, so Bill's going to take us through an overview. We have time. It is a fairly full room. I am invested in making sure that everyone feels heard and is able to provide their testimony. It also can feel like a lot when we're sitting back here. So I'll say if we run about an hour into public testimony, I'll suggest that we take a 5-minute recess just for like bio breaks and refill on water, and we'll come back. But that doesn't mean we're done doing it. So we are happy to be here as long as you need us to be. But the public comment will come after Bill walks us through the overview for fiscal year 27. So Bill, take it away.
Thank you, Your Honor and counselors. So we are talking about the budget this evening. And the budget serves a number of purposes, but first it is the city's fiscal plan that sets out our anticipated revenues and expenditures for the operation of the municipal corporation. The revenues the city receives come from a variety of sources. Those include property taxes, state shared revenues, fees for services, grants, and other sources. And the expenses that are included in the budget represent delivery of services, operation of the utilities, capital construction, and certainly accumulation for future capital projects and needs. The budget process, our fiscal year runs from October 1 to September 30 every year, so it is that annual process in Idaho. We kick off the budget development in March, kind of starting with a council workshop where we give the council an update on our strategic initiatives, progress we've made. And then we kind of have a little bit of a forecast, what we're looking for coming up in the upcoming fiscal year. Kind of what are we seeing the fiscal year might look like. In April, all the city departments are required to prepare and submit their budget requests. In the month of May, then staff and the mayor work with those requests to assemble the preliminary draft budget and work on balancing the budget. And then in June, that draft budget is provided to the council and posted on the city's website. In July, then we conduct a day-long budget workshop with the council where we go through all of the departments, department by department. Takes us the better part of a day where the council has the opportunity to provide direction, make any request any recommended changes before we put the final budget together. And then that leads us to August, where we are this evening, where we have the budget hearing, the opportunity for public comment and input on the proposed budget, and then ultimately the adoption of a final budget document. The city then must certify our levy with the county by no later than the Thursday prior to the second Monday in September. This
state
year,
code
that will
verbiage,
fall
yeah.
on September 10th. And I doubled up animation. Okay. As we work on setting up the budget, we are also mindful and want to make sure that we're looking at the context, both regionally and beyond. In this year, the state revenues have been relatively flat compared to FY25, with year-to-date individual corporate income taxes down by about 1.81 and 9.7% respectively. Sales tax collections have been generally solid and about 7.2% above FY25. The unemployment rate remains relatively low. For Idaho, it's 3.6%. That was in May. In Latah County, 3.2%. So again, this held relatively static with last year. We are aware that both WSU and U of I are having some budgetary challenges, and they may continue to have some negative impacts on the local economy. On the right side, SEL is continuing to expand their operations facilities in South Moscow, so we do expect that will continue to drive economic activity in Moscow. Between 2020 and 2025, our population grew by just under 1,300 residents, or about 4.9% over that 5-year time period. That's pretty typical to our 1% to slightly under 1% kind of annual population growth rate. And then over the course of the last 3 years, housing construction has picked up after about a 12-year time period of significantly lower housing construction following really the Great Recession and then through the pandemic. So this is kind of a chart. It just shows all housing units permitted for construction. The first blue box, vertical blue box there, kind of represents the Great Recession. The second one over on the right represents kind of the pandemic time period. But you can see prior to 2007, the city was permitting anywhere between 250 and 300 housing units per year. That dropped as low as 53 in 2011. But then you see beginning in 2022, really 23, that trend increasing. So over the last 3 years, we have seen consistent increase in housing and development in the community. And certainly that has put pressures on housing availability and certainly housing prices. And we hope to see that continued development continue. As a result of a 2024 legal rulings, the council is aware the city experienced about a 10% reduction in our general fund and about 20% reduction in street fund revenue. So that has had a significant impact on our operations. At that time, we eliminated 6 positions. That has now grown to 8 positions that we have eliminated, including 3 police patrol positions. We issued holdbacks, froze pay increases, and took other measures that largely remain in effect today. We've also experienced significant inflationary pressures. In 24 and 25, we saw 30% increases each year, each of those 2 years for property and liability insurance. That was a significant strain. And then this last year, we saw a 28.6% increase in our health insurance premiums due to claim history. That health insurance increase totals about a $600,000 annual increase cost to the city, and about $360,000 of that sits within the city's general fund. We've had a good history from 2021, up to 26 of our health insurance increases being, generally about that 4 to 5%, with the exception of 2024 when it bumped up to 8.8. So this last year, for this current calendar year, that jumped to 28.6% was a very significant increase to our insurance costs for the city. State sales tax collection does remain strong, but we are concerned that there's some elevated inflation that could potentially reduce spending. And then this year, during the last session, the state also removed $2 million from the liquor sales fund, which would normally be distributed to cities and counties. We lost about $22,000 annually with that change. We also had the Attorney General's office earlier this year terminate the Internet Crimes Against Children funding partnership we had with them. So we lost about $138,000 because they funded one of our forensic detective positions in the police department. We've had that, again, health insurance increase this year, that 28.6, and based upon our current claims trajectory, that could potentially see a significant increase next year as well. This year, our general fund capital, which really is kind of anything after the general fund, after operational expenses, we transfer to the capital fund, and that is used to fund a general, any non-utility related capital improvement project. So that's parks, facilities, it's supplementing roadway funding for road improvements. That transfer this year out of the general fund will be about $896,000. And the street fund will be able to transfer just over $1 million this year for future capital projects, but that is a bit of an anomaly. The street fund has some one-time monies of about $700,000 that came in FY25 with some state general fund appropriation for transportation for local communities. So that those funds are being flowed into 27 and then transferred to the capital fund. So without those one-time monies, the street fund would be able to transfer about $300,000 for each future capital improvements. So that's about paving of 3/4 of a block. Is kind of the current capacity. Personnel changes for the proposed FY27 budget. The 8 positions that we have left unfilled will remain unfilled for this year. We are proposing, we talked about this during the budget workshop, of a temporary 12-month position within the legal department to help support public records request processing. We've seen a very dramatic increase over the last 2 years in public records requests, largely related to the Koberger homicide case. And we need some support because we are falling far behind. There are 2 positions that were requested that we were not able to fund this year, including within the fire department. We've been discussing creating a student resident program manager. We have a very unique form of both fire suppression and EMS service delivery that includes a combination of 22 to 24 student residents that live in our stations, another 60 or so odd community residents, and about 10 paid positions within the city department. So our overall budget for the fire department is just around $2 million. If we had a fully paid department like Pullman has just across state line, we probably need to add another $4 to $5 million to that number to fund that operation. And so we want to, it's imperative for us to continue to support and grow that student resident program. The fleet department had also requested an additional mechanic to help support maintenance activities on all the additional vehicles and equipment the city's acquired over the years. We just weren't able to fund that position this year. I talked a little bit about those public records requests. It's a little bit of a busy chart, but that green line there represents the increase in public records requests the city has seen. In 2020, we had 88 during that time period. It's jumped up to 700, 900, and then last year was 2,050, and we are forecasting this year will be over 2,700. It's a very unique time period to have such a horrific event happen here, and so many different digital media formats that people are trying to utilize that, and we just are getting hammered with public records requests. So we do need some assistance this next 12-month time period. Hopefully, our hope is it will subside at some point in time, but we do need some assistance trying to keep up on those requests. For the compensation for city employees, we are proposing a 2% cost of living increase. That is typically based upon the consumer price index, which was 2.6% last year, but we didn't feel we could afford the full 2.6%. And then we cut our performance increase. So we have a pay for performance, not a stepping grade outside of police department. And so increases, which would normally be kind of stepped increases based on your years of service, for us are based on your performance. Normally we budget 3 or 4% for performance. We cut that in half this year at 2%. So we are keeping it relatively modest this year. That 2% COLA, as we looked from FY 2020 to 27, the CPI has grown by 25.3%. And if the 2% is approved in the budget this evening, we will have kept up about 17.7% of that increase over that time period. Just a quick run through on those strategic plan major challenge areas. Alternate water supply is our number one, and I think it will be for quite some time. We have made substantial strides in advancing that alternative water supply study. We expect by the end of the year, we'll have a preliminary report that's looking at the analysis of potentially piping water up from the Clearwater River. Another item under tier 1, which are kind of our highest priority, is fire and emergency medical service staffing. I kind of discussed the three-legged stool we have for delivery of fire and EMS services, and that is always going to be a concern for us to be able to continue to maintain delivery in that model. Number 3 was substandard emergency communication systems. We are just in the final stages of testing the new radio system. So that's about a $2.1 million investment to replace all of our repeaters and radio systems for our emergency responders that previously in certain areas of town, could not reach dispatch. So we're just ready to turn that system on. Actually, PD made the switch 2 weeks ago. We're working on a fire issue right now up on Muska Mountains, but that'll be completed here shortly. The next item we had in tier 1 is the aging city shop causing inefficiencies and safety concerns. We're having our punch list walkthrough tomorrow on the new shop facility, and then we'll kick off a remodel project of the existing facility so we can get another 20 or 30 years out of that 1968 building. But that additional space was desperately needed and will be really beneficial for a lot of our frontline workers that provide those key essential services to the community. And the inability to recruit sufficient staff, that has definitely improved. Law enforcement still continues to be a bit of a challenge. But we certainly have done a number of initiated other programs and activities to help improve that. And fingers crossed, we feel like we might be up to fully staffed in the police department by the end of this year. That is without those 3 positions currently filled. Tier 2 included inadequate funding to properly maintain city streets. That is a challenge every community faces. This fiscal year, there's $1.9 million budgeted for roadway improvement projects. Deteriorating downtown streetscape is another tier 2 strategic initiatives. The budget before you includes $200,000 to start funding design work for targeted downtown improvements. And the preservation and enhancement urban forest. Again, we're currently working on wrapping up the downtown tree management plan, exploring how we can expand resources for urban forest management. And lack of affordable housing. We had a workshop here earlier about 2 months ago, and we're anticipate having a conversation about with the upcoming strategic plan update that will be launching here in about a month. And wrapping up a tier 3, city gateway aesthetics beautification. There's funds in the budget before you for landscape design and installations with the South Main pedestrian underpass project, and also the installation of the South Moscow entry sign that we've been holding off until the Highway 95 new alignments and project was completed. So there's $84,000 for that one. And then Playfield Rehabilitation Development. We have worked jointly with the Moscow School District to look at potential joint development of that Palouse River Drive property, and we're pending the waiting kind of see what the district's decision is on future facilities. And supporting local economic development, continue to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center, as well as other entities within our region. So jumping over to property taxes as a topic often of interest. This is just a slide that shows our levy rate, kind of the bar in green, compared to several other cities across the state. One closest to us would be Lewiston's. Lewiston's levy rate is just about approximately double our levy rate. And that's for us, it's also compounded with the fact that half the city is tax exempt. So we are proposing in this budget to levy $8.4 million. I think Lewiston will be closer to $26 million that they'll be levying with only 30% greater population. So it does present some unique challenges to us as a city.
And Bill, I was just going to jump in since there's some new faces in the audience. When Bill says half of the city is tax exempt, it's because state-owned land, schools, and churches are all tax exempt. And so the proportion of land in city limits that's owned by the University of Idaho, and thus the University of Idaho, is significant and is compounded with all the other tax exempt entities that you would makeup that you'd normally see in other communities of our size. So just wanted to jump in to clarify the tax exempt.
So the proposed, FY27 budget includes the following property tax adjustments. So the city is allowed to increase our levy by 3%, and that is intended to account for inflationary increase in cost. It's not a 3% to the levy rate, it's to the dollar amount. So if you're levying $8 million as your levy every year, you can increase that by $240,000. That is essentially our 3% inflationary increase the city is allowed to impose. There is some remaining foregone taxes. So those are taxes that existed. So in prior years, when the council chose not to take the full 3%, those monies can be banked and can be brought into the city's budget in a future date. There's only 15,000 of that remaining. So the budget is proposing to bring that additional 15,000 of foregone tax in. And then we can essentially take the prior year's levy and apply it to 90% of the value of new construction. And then that can be added to the levy so that we have the revenues to be able to service the new development. Prior to House Bill 389, now 4 years ago, we could levy against 100% of the value of that new construction. That has been decreased by House Bill 389 to only 90% of that new construction valuation. And then we had no annexations this year, so there's no additional value there. So the total additional property tax revenue the city would be proposing to levy is $447,787. The total non-exempt bond levy is about 8.4 million. I like to kind of compare that against the total police department budget of 7.7. So the department itself consumes all of about $500,000 of all the property tax that the city is able to levy. The levy rate then, that once the full assessed valuation of the city is determined by the Latah County assessor, then that levy amount is divided into the total assessed valuation. We are estimating that's going to be $351 per thousand of assessed valuation this year. A theoretical home with an assessed valuation of $400,000 then would see the city's levy decrease by about $18.32 for the upcoming year. This is just a chart, just kind of shows historical tax rates. The exempt, which is is the general operations, is a larger portion of the city's levy, is kind of shown in brown. The blue is the non-exempt, which is the bond levy that was approved in 2019 for the construction of the police services facility and other facility improvements. That bond has 2 more years on it. So in 2029, that one will roll off. That's levying about $1,040,000 per year to pay the debt service on that bond. And then the $8.4 million is for general city operations. So this is the proposed total with the levy amount for the facilities. It would be about $9.4 million that would be levied in total. And there's just a detailed slide just showing that $400,000 home. After you take out the homeowner's exemption of $125,000, remaining $275,000 in taxable value. The non-exempt, the city general operational levy would be $857 for the year. That would be a decrease of just about $8 compared to this year. And then the exempt levy for the bond would go from $117 to $106, so about a $10.36 decrease between the 2 years for a total decrease of that $18.32. We can expect to see home valuations remain flat. We saw in 2023 a substantial increase in residential property valuation, 40% or more, but that has remained relatively static since that time. The one thing that we also like to highlight is, public entities, cities like us, we're only required to budget or put within our appropriation ordinance the funds that we expect to receive and what we expect to expend. In 2020, the city council chose at that point in time to include the city's fund balances in our budget. And that's kind of a unique thing. Most cities don't. You could certainly look at their audit financial statements. You could see what cash investments they had on hand, but they aren't going to put that in their budget because they're not expending it that year. In 2020, the city decided to include those in our budget. So you'll see in our capital funds, there'll be a beginning fund balance and ending fund balance that represents funds held for future capital improvements. For FY27, those fund balances total about 74 million across the city's 77 capital and 2 internal service funds. Additionally, there are a number of internal transfers that are unique to our fund structure. So, for example, Parks and Rec for us is in a Rec and Culture fund. It's not sitting in the general fund. So the general fund transfers 2.8 million every year to the Rec and Culture fund to largely fund 90% of Parks and Recreation activities and facility operations. That 2.8 million gets counted twice because it comes in as revenue to the general fund and it gets counted as revenue to the Rec and Culture fund. And so we have about 14 million in transfers that are unique to our budget structure and how we have our funds arranged that count numbers twice. If you were to take the fund balances, which normally wouldn't be budgeted, and then were to eliminate the transfers that are getting counted twice, the city's budget would go from 149 million down to 61 million. That would actually reflect true expenditures over the fiscal year. So just a kind of overview, you can kind of see that in this chart. So this is the revenues by source in the city's budget of the 149 or 150 million roughly, 50% of that is fund balances. So half of the budget are fund balances that we have largely in the utilities and the capital projects fund. Second largest source would be charges for services. Those are largely going to be utilities fees. And so you see just about 24% that are in charges for service. You got capital transfers. Again, those transfers are largely counted twice because those are transfers from the utility operating funds to their capital fund or from the general fund to the capital projects fund. Property taxes as a whole makes up 6.4% of the city's revenues, and then intergovernmental revenues, which is state shared revenues and grants, is about 4%. Then everything else ends up being relatively smaller portions of the city's overall revenues. If you look where the funds go, capital outlay is a large piece. So enterprise fund capital outlay, about 41%. So those are actual capital expenditures, and it's that ending fund balance that sits in that capital fund. That ending fund balance is accounted for as an expenditure. And then general capital outlay, again, about 12% there. So you have about 53% of the expenditures. They're just capital accumulations or expenditures. And then from there, it's pretty evenly spaced. So public safety is about 8.5% of the total operations. General government's about 5.68% of the expenditures. Utilities range from 6 to 7 for the most part. And that's generally where the expenditures sit. For the general fund itself, so this is all the non-utility revenue supported activities. So it's police, fire, parks, recreation, sit in the general fund. I mean, Parks and Rec sits in the Rec and Culture fund, but 90% of it is funded from the general fund. Of the $21 million general fund, about 36% of that is the police department. The next largest is non-departmental because that's where our transfers sit. So the non-departmental fund is where that $2.8 million transfer to the Rec and Culture fund to help fund Parks and Recreation activity sits. It's where the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund sit. And so that's a non-departmental. The next largest department is community development at just under 14%, fire just under 10%, and then the rest tend to sit between that 2 and 3% overall expenditure. General fund revenues as a whole, the 3% plus the remaining 15,000 foregone results in just a very slight few $1,000 increase over 2026. Because we had more foregone available last year. So I think the foregone was a little bit 86,000 last year. New construction's making up for some of that loss this year. We had a little bit higher new construction valuation, but essentially property tax revenues collected by the city. The increase will be relatively consistent with what we had last year. Some modest increases in franchise fee utilities. We are expecting a decrease of about 44,000 in state liquor revenues after that reallocation, and then state liquor revenues have just been on a downward trend since 2021. 2021 was a banner year for liquor collection, but after that, it's been on a very significant downward trend. And then everything else is expected to remain relatively flat or without significant changes. For utility rates, we'll talk a little bit more about this in fee resolution, but it feeds into the budget itself. On the water, we are forecasting a 5.15% increase, and all utility rates, well, this year, both sewer, water, and stormwater were set through a utility rate study. We spent most of 2025 working through that, and the council received that study report in April. It goes through and looks at all of the operational expenses of the utilities and all the capital needs, and provides then essentially what are the revenues necessary to support the operations and the capital investment in utilities. And so and we do that every 5 years. Every 5 years, we engage a third-party consultant. We have a citizen rate committee that we have representatives from all the different utility classes that sit on that citizen rate advisory committee that provide input and direction on what the proposal should be that then comes forward to the council for adoption. So for this year, water is going to see a 5.15% increase. Sewer has a wide variety of different customer class. And again, those get adjusted to make sure that there's equity in the system for the cost of delivery to the different customers. So on the sewer side, you see anywhere from 2.1% up to 6% increase, depending upon the different class. Stormwater is going to see the largest increase at 29%, but it is also the smallest utility amount. I think that 29% for a typical home is like $2.50 a month, if I recall correctly. Sanitation fund, we'll see, that we've been able to hold pretty flat. We'll continue to see a slight decrease in mechanical container service rates. That was a recommended adjustment in the last sanitation rate study to get customer class equity among different customers. No increase on residential well cart rates. We have other miscellaneous rates that we're proposing to increase by 1 to 2.5% this year in the sanitation. Fees to LSI will be increased by about 2.38%, and then 2.08 to Finley Buttes. That's our long haul and transport. Those are by contract and by CPI index adjustments. We'll continue to see how fuel relief sits. We went a period of time without having to provide any fuel relief. We are, with the current fuel prices, having to provide that fuel relief to our providers because they're being hit by those increased fuel costs providing that service. When we'll have a capital transfer for the sanitation capital fund for $521,000. For the water capital fund, our revenues, so the transfer from the water fund to the water capital fund is forecast at $3,007,000. That fund had a beginning fund balance of about $13 million, and then we have about $364,000 in investment earnings. Expenses for the upcoming year, it's going to be relatively light on the water side. So we've got about $207,000 in water line improvements. We have some larger projects that are currently in design. So that'll put us to an ending fund balance of about $16 million. Over the next 10 years, we have about $27.8 million of water capital improvements that have been identified in our capital improvement plan. Shifting to the sewer capital fund, sewer fund will be transferring a little over $4 million to the sewer capital fund. We'll have a $27 million beginning fund balance and just over $1 million in investment earnings. We'll have some larger expenditures in the sewer fund this year with some water reclamation facility improvements, about $1.4 million. Lift station renovations out at the mall lift station, as well as some sewer main replacements. But we'll have a forecasted ending fund balance of about $30 million. Within the sewer fund, we have some rather large and expensive projects we have on the horizon. I think we have $64 million, almost $65 million that is forecast over the next 10 years for facility improvements. That facility is reaching almost over 30 years in age, and it's time that we have to go through a lot of the major components and then start working on some other enhancements to that facility to remain compliance with our permits. So we'll have some larger expenditures coming up there. Stormwater capital, smaller revenues there, investment earnings about $12,000, $311,000 coming in from the transfer from the operating fund with a beginning fund balance of $540,000. We have about $333,000 of stormwater conveyance improvements programmed. We have a large storm line over on Roosevelt Street that needs to be replaced. That'll leave us with an ending fund balance of about $530,000. Relatively modest because it's a relatively new utility that was established here a few years ago. Sanitation capital, interest earnings about $487,000, transfer in from the sanitation fund, $521,000. We have about $11.6 million beginning fund balance. We have a number of large projects on the horizon with sanitation fund. The transfer station is reaching end of life and limited capacity, so that's going to be a large expense on the future. And we do also expect that we will be repurposing and relocating the recycling center here in the near future as well. So those will be some of our larger projects coming up in the sanitation fund. Capital projects fund, then, is where all other non-utility related. For revenues this year, we have about $1.2 million in grants, $310,000 in donations. Those are actually contributions coming in from the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency for some projects within the Urban Renewal District. Investment earnings just under $800,000. General fund transfer, as I mentioned, $896,000 this year. We have some Transit Center is a building that we own and operate, but we lease to Smart Transit and to the University of Idaho. So we do have some accumulations for future capital improvements that are segmented in a separate fund for the Transit Center. So it'll be about $50,000 for that. And then the Moscow School District Community Playfields, MSDCP there. We've got $83,000 to be transferred to the capital fund for accumulations for future facility improvements and repairs there. And then the street fund is able to transfer just a little over $1 million there. Our beginning fund balance in the capital projects fund is about $13.4 million. Expenditures this year, we've got about $1.1 million in buildings, general government. So the next phase of remodel of existing shop facility is in there. We've got HVAC replacement station 3, library roof coating repair, animal shelter assessment, a HERC roof replacement, and a fire panel replacement. We also have a transfer in from the capital fund to the Rec and Culture Fund to fund a Parks and Recreation master plan, as well as a downtown tree replacement program to begin kind of systematically installing new trees and replacing those that are not in good health. Underneath the streetscape program, we've about $306,000. That includes the South Couplet beautification, downtown streetscape design, and then that South City Limits entry sign. For the sidewalk program, $100,000. And then roadway improvements, we have $1.9 million. We'll have finish up expenditures related to both the North and South Mountain View improvements that are currently under construction. We'll have a South Main pedestrian crossing project, about $900,000. The Reisenauer path that was just on the consent agenda at $145,000. Taylor Avenue pavement restoration, 364, and then D Street, we'll be starting design on the D Street. We did get a grant to do a grind and inlay at D Street from Maine up to Hayes, so we'll be working on design on that project as well. And then our annual surface treatment program where we do slurry and chip seals on our roadways to extend their life. We have a parking lot improvements program here. We have some pavement failing here in City Hall, so there's an estimate of $273,000 to repair the parking lot. We have $105,000 for public art installations, including the police station and the East City Park stage art components. And then for park improvements, it'll be a relatively large year, $2.1 million. We have about $1.2 million program for Lola Clyde Park improvements. So that'll be frontage improvements on Polk and on Rodeo. So parking construction and pathway construction. We did receive a $500,000 grant towards those improvements, but it'll be about a $1.2 million project. We have the East City Park stage at 796, Anderson Frontier Park path replacement repair at 137. And then we'll be doing a Mosier Park master plan project for $20,000 to start setting the stage for a vision for the development of that park. And then we have gel coat repairs on the large slides of the pool at $131,000. So we'll have an ending fund balance for forecasting at about 11.5. Okay, so that's the highlights for me. So recommendations from staff this evening is to conduct a public hearing, and after consideration of testimony received, we have actually three items. One, anytime a city reaches back to pull in foregone, so that $15,000 this year, you have to approve a resolution. So a resolution in your packet for that. The next step then would be to approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings. And then the last item is to authorize the mayor's execution of the L2, also including your packet, to certify that property tax amount in $9,445,604. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you had before we open the public hearing.
Any immediate questions before we go to public hearing? Evan?
Yeah, a couple things. You showed the number of increased housing starts we got through 2025. How's 2026 looking? Do you have a number?
Strong. We're continuing on that path.
So no specific numbers.
I could pull it up here for you
Halfway through.
momentarily. I don't have the top of my head.
But if
How do you
it's
do that?
along that path, and it's already 120 or so for the year, probably.
Well, we typically, those are calendar year shown there.
Yeah.
So we still have,
Oh.
so not fiscal year, calendar year. So, I think we're closer to 70 or 80 so far this year.
Okay, thank you. I had another question. The surface treatment, the slurry seal money that we show for next year is 356,000 about. Does that include the money that we had in the previous year budget, the 2026 budget that couldn't be used because the bids were too high? Are we transferring that money also, or?
So some of that money went into the Reisenhour Park to Reisenhour pathway that was presented to committee last week. So some of that was appropriate for surface treatment this year that we weren't able to do.
Right.
We had an opportunity, and with SEL's continued expansion, we wanted to get a pedestrian path connection down to their campus. So we advanced that project that was actually not scheduled till about 2031. So some of it was consumed with that project, and then others would just remain in the fund balance for future street needs improvements.
So anyway, that amount is still looking low. There wasn't another way to bump it up because we're seeing bids that are higher than we
Well, and part of it's
expected.
just trying to keep a manageable project too. Just on staff and as far as disruption in the community, we really need to kind of retain. I think the most we've expended on surface treatment is around that 600,000 in a given year. Beyond that, can get pretty disruptive to people getting around.
One other thing, you mentioned some of the one-time money for streets that we received basically this year. Can that carry over when it's one-time money, or are we?
Correct. That'll go into just the capital accumulation for future roadway improvements.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Any other questions before we pivot?
I just have one.
Scott, sure.
I know we talked about during the rate study with the increases for the water, the rate study was determined by looking at our capital plan and then determining how much we need to pay for those in the long term and then who equitably pays for those. But for a residential house, I think it was in the study that would talk about how much a typical person would see with those increases. I think you said storm was $2. Do you know what the other two for water and sewer were going to be?
If you give me a moment, I've got that slide in the fee resolution. I can pull up.
Okay, I just thought it would be helpful. that
Or
peop-
Bill, if it's easier for us to keep it in the fee resolution conversation, we can,
Oh,
It's not.
no,
hard.
that's okay. I,
thought it was pertinent when we got a lot of questions.
there's
on that.
spoilers here, everybody. Just kidding.
So that's the slide that shows the increase. So total increase across all utilities was forecasted at about $7.66 a month.
And we're looking at for a $400,000 house, a decrease of $18. And so a typical $400,000 house would see a decrease in their tax, in their
So the
taxes would
$18,
go down, and then the fees between the two of them, though. I mean, you would-
so the tax reduction is for the year.
oh,
So
and
$18
that's-
for the year.
And that's for the,
That's for the month.
okay, so it's even better than, yeah, okay.
Don't spend it right yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had so much planned for that money. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a fuller house than usual, so there's a couple of things we'll go through before I drop the gavel and we mark the time of what the actual opening of the public hearing is. So I'm just gonna say, I think we have like maybe 10 packets of the Citizens Budget Guide printed in the hallway if you want. It rolls through a lot. It has all of these numbers packaged. It tells you what falls into things like non-departmental or in capital transfers. It is 12 pages instead of the 350 pages that is also available and has been posted since June if you want to go through it, and has been available to the public. So we're going to have an opportunity for folks to come up and provide testimony in opposition of the proposed action, testimony in favor, and testimony of a neutral manner. And so I'm going to use my 3-minute timer. If we end up, I'll clock what time we open the public meeting. And if we get up to an hour and we're still interested in going, like I said at the top of the meeting, I will recommend that we take a 5-minute recess just for bio breaks, water, and then we'll reconvene. We are here to be a sounding board for as long as you need us to be. And I can't speak for council. I can just speak for myself as the executive branch. What I'll tell you is really helpful when it comes to public testimony is giving us some specific examples about what you'd like us to change. We've received every print copy that's been asked to be read into the public comment. So we all have print copies. It will be in the packet available to the public as well. But we are an incorporation. We operate as a municipal corporation, and so we do have to have a budget. And so I'm just letting you know from my perspective, hearing don't pass the budget doesn't help me a whole lot if you're not letting me know as the executive officer what you want to see changed. The other thing I'll say before I drop the gavel to say two last things before we open the meeting. The stage, the ECD Park stage was a topic of conversation. It is in the budget. I'll let you know right now that the conversation about go or no go for a stage will also happen when the bids close and when the council receives the proposal for bids. A budget is a guiding document, right? So just want to clarify, if you are frustrated with the stage, I promise you will have another opportunity to share your frustrations or concerns with us. But on that note, trust is earned. I understand that. Respect, I think, is earned as well. I don't want to have to use a gavel to indicate anything. If things feel tense, I will use the gavel. I ask for all of us to remember that we are public servants. We are your neighbors. We might not be all of your friends. I hope someday we will be. We'd like to be your friends, or at least I shouldn't speak on behalf of council. I'm happy to be your friend and be a listening board, but I will use the gavel if we need to, and we'll call a recess. So I'm hoping that we're all here to understand that we're all working towards a common solution, which is to provide adequate services for our citizens and meet the mission statement that hangs in the chambers right here. So with that, at this clock's reading of 7:55 p.m., we're going to open the public hearing. Let me get my timer ready. And so first up, we'll have folks come up who want to provide remarks in opposition of the proposed actions before us. And so the same rules apply as the public comment. Please tell us your name, where you reside, and you have 3 minutes to share.
Good evening again, councilors, mayors, city administrators. Again, my name is John Slagman, and I live at 924 East A Street. And I typically don't do credentials, but I've been a process improvement consultant for 13 years and energy management and sustainability consultant for those 13 years as well. And I am a capital projects manager. Did anyone in this room hit a pothole or swerve to avoid one on the way here tonight? I know I do pretty much every day. I know someone very specifically who did 2 weeks ago or about. On July 31st, a man hit potholes on 6th Street, was thrown off his skateboard. His arm was torn open, among it severely injuring his hip. Long story short, he had to go to the hospital that Friday night. His backpack still laid on the street on Sunday. I picked it up myself and delivered it to him on Monday, which is why I missed that public comment, unfortunately. But I'm glad I was able to get him his backpack back. Page 2 of this budget are the most significant and pressing issues facing this community. We just went over them. Thank you, Mr. Belknap. One of them, in the city's own words, is inadequate funding to properly maintain the city streets. The same budget cuts the roadway improvement program by 55%, from $3 million to around $1.3 million. People are paying twice for streets. They pay their property taxes, and then they pay hospital bills and repair bills that the potholes create. The city may respond by saying Boise cut the roadway funding, but these are capital dollars, and the council can vote to move dollars from amenity spending into roads capital. The East City Park stage is not on the priority list or on the capital improvement list or in the mayor's budget address. Yet this budget funds it at almost $800,000. That one stage equals 58.7% of the entire road program. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of having a community stage. What I'm not in favor of is wasteful and flagrant government spending. As I'm aware, a licensed, bonded, and insured contractor offered to donate and install all this stage's concrete to engineering specifications at no cost to the city. I've heard that offer was never answered, and it never reached this council. The city's own 249-page bid package has no way to accept donated work. Volunteers built the last stage and repaired it after 2009 arson, and if we have to build a new stage, which we do, I volunteer my own time to coordinate the volunteers and sponsors who will get it built. Generosity should not need permission to reach this room. One more point with my time tonight. I'm going to hand the clerk this 60-page municipal salary survey. I prepared a pro bono using my skills and experience I listed earlier. It covers all 19 benchmark positions that the city surveys. I asked the council to reconsider the $50,000 biennial salary survey line. The city budgeted this same line at $12,000 in 2024, $20,000 in 2026. This one is free. Fund the streets. Please reconsider the survey spending. And before you spend $796,000 on a stage, please consider accepting public charity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me reset our timer. Okay, please introduce yourself, share your name, where you reside, and, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cheat you out a few seconds. I hit start too soon. And again, this is testimony in opposition of the actions before us.
Sorry, I had to move the microphone all the way up. My name is Rigel Tavella, and I live on Ridge Road. And I read through this budget, which was onerous. I noticed there is a lot of nickel and diming. So we're spending a lot of money like DoorDash if we were a household instead of cooking at home. So this salary survey that John did is kind of what I'm talking about here. 50,000 here, 60,000 here. A couple of things caught my attention. Outside consultants for Parks and Rec for $130,000. So in 2013 and 2019, long-term studies for Parks and Rec had been done. So it's not urgent that we do this immediately. And what is needed to be done that can't be done internally by engineering, who's supposed to have this under plan? And why do we have to do it in a year that is a difficult budget year? Also, I was thinking about it, that the park at Anderson Frontier, the path is fine. We play there all the time. No need to spend money on it this year. Downtown design, $200,000. How many times have you guys done downtown design surveys and paid for it? How much of the previous design from the Welch Comer will be used in this new plan? Like what wasn't done? It feels to me like this is a lot of duplicate work on the shoulders of taxpayers like me who've already funded this. It's exhausting in a difficult budget year. Now, we've heard about the -3 police positions, lack of available funding, this and that, we're not going to do it. You guys have approved 1% for art every year. That's a police officer and a half because you are prioritizing aesthetics over public safety. Like, I understand that overtime is cheap in the short run, but God forbid, a tired, cranky cop makes a bad call. That's not what we need. We need less murals, which could be donated, and we need police. All of us in Moscow can be assured, we love no kings, right? And yet you guys sit here like a giant board of kings, not acknowledging what we say or caring at all. You're like Prince John with the property taxes. The stage, that's a boob job when you need to pay a mortgage and the roof is falling in. So I would encourage you to look and see what has to be done now, what is frivolous, and what is just aesthetics and entertainment, and what can be donated. Because we of the city of Moscow would love to do that if you would let us. Thank you.
Thank you. And we don't do applause, we don't do booing, we don't do heckling, and I say that now because it's an opposition, but I would gavel that down if it was in favor of the budget. I just want to clarify. I asked for decorum. We got to keep it an even kill. So, okay, let me reset this timer. Okay, please introduce yourself, your name, where you reside, and share what's on your mind.
Yeah, so my name is Neil Huang, and I reside here in Moscow, Idaho. Today, I stand in firm opposition to today's budget. I'm mostly concerned about the massive increase in government spending, particularly year over year. As I think it went over in the presentation, the increase itself was almost $10 million. And just to show everyone how much that is more money than the entire city gets in property taxes. So I think every dollar that has to be spent has to be scrutinized. And I thank the previous speaker for going through it, the entire details. I didn't do that. I didn't have time. But I was very concerned about something. That was that $3.7 million was allocated to the Culture and Recreation Fund. And that is nearly half of all the property taxes that's going to be collected by the city. Now, I'm sure many people in this city like the fund. I do too. However, I think that what we should do is look at switching it over to a private funding model via voluntary donations and of things of the such, the voluntary donations, because as the presentation stated, if you looked closely, the city of Nampa has lower property values than we do, and they also have a lower property tax levy rate than we do. So there's obviously work that we can be done there. Now, where should this money be spent instead? So when we defer maintenance of any kind, but especially of roads, taxpayers do not save money because what you do is you just kick the can down the road and it's actually hidden debt where costs will actually balloon going forward. That's where the money should be spent. And this city has talked about $125 million over 10 years for capital projects. Just do the math. $3.7 million for culture and recreation over 10 years. That's 37 million out of 125 million that can be funded without raising a dime in taxes or in debt, which is frankly even worse. That is exactly what we should do. So that's my recommendation today, is that if we do that, we switch the culture and recreation fund from from being forced to be spent by taxpayer funds into a maintenance fund, that we can lower our tax burden over many years and not have to alleviate our need to raise taxes or raise debt in order to keep our city functioning the best way possibly can. So by approving my recommendation, our city can be elevated to the next level and be the best it possibly can be. So that's my recommendation today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wong. I appreciate it. And one thing, I don't need your house address, but it would be helpful for us to understand if you reside within city limits. So if you can at least tell us what street you live on, that would be helpful for our public record as well. Okay, please introduce yourself, where you reside, street included, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is Joshua David Kruszewicz. I have been a resident of Moscow, Idaho for about a year now. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and I am a student at New St. Andrews College. Dog and pony show, though that information was at the beginning of the meeting, the most important things of which I hold in my hand on this piece of paper, I was able to pick out one thing about which I am concerned. The fire department student resident program being underfunded doesn't sound very reassuring to me, considering that Washington and Oregon this summer was burning a lot. And we all had the smoke in our lungs and probably in our houses too, up until about a couple of days ago when that rain from God came down and washed all of the smoke away. So Idaho didn't burn, but Washington and Oregon did, and the Canadians as well, but one might say that that was deserved. So per the budget plan challenges, Moscow is already hurting for medical and ER personnel. Now, the reason stated was that there was not enough money to fund these programs and to fill those positions at the city level. And so, as others have noted, building a stage that costs $796,000, which, Mayor Lewis, you did specify that this is an estimate for the city budget. And so there's a bid that will come down, which will finalize the price number. I actually don't really care that there's not a set number. In my opinion, anything is too much when you have essential medical and fire programs which aren't being funded. Not only that, but property taxes being raised by the maximum 3%, which, when added to all of the other things which are being carried over from last year's budget, totals almost half the cost of the stage. So to report that the budget just was too tight doesn't sound very reassuring on the heels of a very hot and smoky summer to someone who just moved here, when we could be spending that money towards those programs, towards public safety, and making sure that if fire does come to Idaho next summer, or God forbid, in the rest of the hot season of this year, that we're ready and prepared at all levels to do something about it, to maintain the peaceful way of life that we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kruszewicz. Did I say it right? Kruszewicz. Thank you. Kruszewicz. Marking it on my notes so I get it right next time too. Okay. Beautiful. Please introduce yourself, what street you reside on, and you have 3 minutes to share why you are opposed to the budget.
Hello, my name is Tate Garrett. I reside on East 6th Street, just a few blocks away. And I wanted to make just a couple of comments and then a quick suggestion. Just this past Sunday, I was with a group at East City Park dancing, actually. Because of the size of our group, we actually were not using the existing stage, but using the cement lot in front of it. So I kind of bring that up mostly just to illustrate that there isn't a pressing need for any change there at the moment. My suggestion would be, as a recent employee of SEL, I know I can attest to their robust habit of supporting charitable endeavors. And as a previous comment was made, I'm sure many other excellent businesses and individuals around here would be very happy to donate of their time and their resources, both monetary and otherwise, to potentially help with construction either of a stage or potentially some of the other projects such as I'm not familiar with exactly what is going on at the other park that had 1.2 million allotted to it, I believe. So my suggestion would be to potentially defer some of these projects and see if voluntary funding could be raised from the community to fund it instead. This would, of course, allow you, assuming that the stage could be funded this way, at least about 800,000, if not more, back into your budget for other needs, such as some of those that were observed earlier, which would either allow you to fund other things that are more pressing or to reduce the increase in property taxes that was proposed. So that would be my basic suggestion, just that we could probably fund some of these things that are not immediate needs through just citizen donations and corporate giving. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Garrett. Appreciate it. Okay. How are we doing on? Yep, we're not yet to an hour, guys. We got time. So, please come on up and, oh, hello, sorry. Introduce yourself, what street you reside on, and let me quit futzing with this timer, and what's on your mind.
Thank you. I've never been to city council before, so thank you. Thank you guys for serving. I'm grateful to you. My name is Sharice Stutzman. I live on D Street, and I am an alumna from the U of I. We've been here for 2.5 years. We went to the U of I and graduated about 26 years ago. We loved it. We tried to come back for 25 years, and we're so happy we're here. We love the city. We've been everywhere, and we just love it. My request is simple. It's just an appeal to you. March 17th, 2024, because of the road on 5th and Jefferson, I was on a bike. The road was so uneven. The bike fell over. My ankle shattered, dislocated, shattered, broke both leg bones. Tomorrow I will go to Mayo Clinic. Supposed to be there for 30 days, and it's going to be like $56,000 just for one little part of it. And the roads, I don't think anybody, I hope I don't speak just for myself. I don't think the problem is that we're opposed to the stage. We love what you do. We love Moscow. We love the culture. I'm a fine art painter. I've been in galleries in San Diego, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene. And so we love the arts. That's an essential part of Moscow. The only thing that we are debating is your timing. If I have a broken window in my home, I'm not going to put in a marble countertop. I'm going to take care of the broken window first. So that's my appeal. Please hear our request as your townspeople. We love Moscow. We absolutely need to prioritize the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stutzman. Okay. Would you like to come on up and introduce yourself and what street you reside on? And I'll give you 3 minutes to share why you're opposed to the proposal before us.
My name is Robert Seward. I live on North Polk Extension in those apartments right next to the city park. I have been a resident of Moscow for 36 years. When my wife and I applied for our apartment, the rent at the time was $700 a month. The current rent is $1,100 a month. That $400 a month is totally based on the various levies that have been passed over the last several years. So when I hear these kind of things, my question is, how much are you going to cost me? How much is this going to cost me? How much is this going to come out of my paycheck, out of my Social Security, out of the limited funds that I have? Now remember, renters get no discount. Senior citizens in rentals get no discount. Families raising children in apartments get no discount. Families in government subsidized housing, though they do get some discount from that, this is a guaranteed increase in funds. Now, obviously, there's certain things that need to be addressed, and we can't pretend they don't. The public school system intends to ask for at least a new elementary school in the near future. So how are we to pay for this? Because they're going to want to raise a different levy, which will raise even more money. The logical answer to this is to do it in an orderly manner. Pay off the police department first. Then let's sit down and say, okay, what do we need the most? Which, of course, is probably another elementary school. And let's figure how to pay that without driving our elderly out of Moscow, driving our poor families out of Moscow and leaving this to only be the families of those who can well afford to live here, and the poor can find a place in Deary if they're lucky. Maybe. I'm not trying to be snarky. That's just the economic reality. How much are you going to raise my rent?
Thanks, Mr. Seward. And I will just clarify, any decision for a school bond is purely handled by a separately elected governing body. It's the school board of trustees. So just, we can still include it in the comment, but as far as what we have direct control over, we are scheduled to pay off the police bond by 2029. So we're getting there slowly but surely. Okay, anyone else who would like to provide remarks in opposition? Come on up, give us your name, what street you reside on, and I'll give you 3 minutes. Yes, Joyce, please come back. Joyce, welcome back. If you want to reintroduce yourself, you're welcome to, but.
My name is Joyce Johnson. I live at 217 West First Street here in Moscow. Like I said, I've been a resident for 23 years. I love Moscow. My children live here, and my grandchildren live here, and I love all the activities. The 1912 Center, what goes on at the park. We love the park. And I had the whole thing prepared, but I'm just going to forego it. I appreciate your willingness, because I've never met you before, but I appreciate your appeal to the community, that you want to listen, right? And you want us to voice our opinion because you are our servants, and you know that, right? So I've never spoken here before. I think the last time I was in here was during 2020, during COVID, for all the stuff that went on there. But it's hard for me to understand how our city is considering to spend that kind of money on a stage. And one of my daughters performed on that stage in the park. And it was not beautiful, but there are other alternatives. We could rent a stage. They do that. We did that at Rendezvous in the park. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. But anyway, I just appeal to you to look at what we were presented tonight. He did a great job of presenting the budget. One of the things that stood out to me that he said that we can, sorry, I'm gonna find my notes.
So good, no worries.
We can have an increase in our budget of up to 3%. Like, it's not, all right, where'd it go? Anyway, do you remember that point? So you are allowed to increase the budget by 3%. Did I understand that
By
right?
up to
Okay.
3%, yeah, that's the
Okay.
limit.
Just because we're allowed, is that fiscally responsible? I have to be fiscally responsible with my money that I get in, right? I'm on Social Security. I work for myself. I'm still working. I'm 72 years old. And I'm not just concerned for myself. I'm concerned for my children and for my grandchildren. I want them to be able to still live in Moscow. And most of my friends are 30 and 40 something, and they have children. And it's just a big tax burden to put on people. So my biggest objection is what we've already spent, according to what I've read, for the architects was in like $90,000. Okay, I think that's excessive for a stage. You know, maybe for a big building. Okay, I'm done. Anyway, that's my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back up, Joyce. I appreciate it. Okay, anyone else who would like to come in opposition? Yeah, come on up, introduce yourself, what street you live on, and I'll start the timer now.
Hello, my name is Asher Petkovich. I live on 905.5 South Logan Street. I kind of came here in just neutrality and maybe even some support, but hearing the extent that fire and EMS is not funded kind of hit a little personally, as in May, I sustained a motor vehicle accident where I have a 3rd-degree burn on this right leg, and the doctor said if it would have been 4 inches over, I would have died. So it was only because of the EMS was available in town that they were able to get to me and get me to the hospital. I have spent the last 2 months in recovery with stints, multiple week-long stints in the hospital. So I just seeing that like $100,000 was going to be spent on murals that could have been used towards EMS or fire. And that just, I was a little interested that like, for how bad, or not bad, but we said we're like not in the best of budgets that we want to spend on a stage or art projects like this when more critical, mission critical government services are underfunded. I just wanted to say I disapprove of kind of the priority on the murals and stages and stuff like that. Again, I can't give you substantive comments of like this exact line item. But yeah, I guess that is all. Thank you.
And Asher, what's your can you say your last name one more time?
Petkevich.
Pekyevich.
Petkevich.
Thank you, Asher. Appreciate it. Okay. We've got another 30 minutes before we have a bio break, folks. We're doing okay. So, all right. Name, what street you live on, and you've got 3 minutes starting now.
My name is Alexander Kirkpatrick. I've lived in Moscow for a few years. I live on the south side of town, right off Steiner Avenue, across from the A&W. I've been trying to make it to city council meetings more regularly the past year or so, and I finally made it to this one. And not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed. The second page of your guys' proposed budget calls our street funding inadequate. And what it seems like is from fiscal year last year to this year, we've cut our street funding pretty much in half. But we're increasing our property taxes by the maximum amount, right? We're not funding fire and EMS, but we're paying for a new stage and new art projects, and we're short 3 patrol officers. This just seems like a pretty heinous case of misplaced priorities. The city has, for the past, seems like 19 years, spent under our budget. Why can't we use our savings? Why are we adding the burden? Why are we adding insult to injury on these, a lot of young families and older individuals in Moscow who are trying to make it legitimately? And we've got all this money in the bank, and we're trying to increase taxes, and we're cutting down on the amount of public services we're providing in terms of safety and EMS. And I think that's just a pretty grotesque form of misplaced priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Okay, anyone else who would like to come and provide testimony in opposition of the recommendations before us? Sure. Give us your name, what street you live on, and I'll wait till you get up there to hit start so I don't cheat you out of your full 3 minutes. Okay.
I'm Cardin Sellers. I also live on the south end of town. I've been here for a few years, and ever since I moved here, I've been doing blue collar work. I do fine finish work and general construction, and like I'm personally invested in making sure this town is more beautiful. But like everybody else has been saying, rent has been going up, the cost of living has been going up, and so I try to cut costs where I can personally. Like I recently was able to get a e-bike for pretty cheap, and it's been pretty nice to get around in general. But when I try to go get groceries and I'm hauling that around, sometimes I do that after dark because I work long hours. And a couple of times very recently, I mean, really just this year, I've been driving along the same roads as I usually do. And then I'll hit a pothole, I'll hit a bump, and my groceries go everywhere. And I can't do anything to like make up that lost cost. It's just getting, even though I'm trying as hard as I can to cut costs, the condition of the roads here makes it harder still. And I love the stated purpose of the budget. Like let's make Moscow safe, and let's make the streets safe, provide services to people. But when we're foregoing like just basic maintenance, like And another one of those things is just the drinking water here is not very good. And so I don't understand why we would spend so much trying to add to the accoutrements or the aesthetics of the town, when for the vast majority of people, like, it costs them money just to get from point A to point B because of how bad the roads are. And they have to worry about what they're putting in their body because of how bad the water is. And I just think that even as it is, people are willing to donate time and money and art to beautify the city. And I think they'd be even more willing to do that if, you know, their basic needs were taken care of on the streets, in the water, and their basic safety was looked after with the fire department and the police department. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. And did you say your first name was Carden?
Yeah.
Like Carden. Got it. Okay. Lori, we're good? Am I helping? Okay. Excellent. Anyone else would like to come and provide testimony in opposition of our proposed action? Please let us know what your name is and what street you live on, and I'll start the timer now.
Hi, I'm Jeff Perley. I live on Lincoln Street. I've been here about 18 years. I love this town, and I thank you for your service to the community. And I'm pretty much agreeing with everybody's, or a lot of folks' assessment on the priorities. They just seem to be a little bit off. Roads could be more, I think there are more important than park improvements and things like that. But, you know, I really appreciated what you said about, you know, tell us what you would think we could do. I'm a real estate investor. I've also been a chief operations officer, run my own consulting company. So I've been involved in real estate and a lot of other technical projects. I'm a project manager. I want to help. My request to the city is the fact that, you know, we have a lot of folks who said they want to help. Give us a chance to help. I know developers, I know electricians, plumbers, framers, roofers. We can put that stage together for you. I'm not saying it's going to be free, but I think that we could do a lot better than $790-some thousand. So give us a chance to serve. Give us a chance to build the city, build this great community alongside of you. And again, thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Burley. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else interested in 3 minutes to go on record in opposition of the actions in front of us? No, sorry. Going once, going twice. Okay. And I know there's going to be twice as many people who are excited to stand up and speak in favor of the proposed budget. That is a joke. I know how these things go. This is not my first rodeo. So, same rules apply. 3 minutes. Please no applause. Please no boo, hiss, stomping. Please. I know. I'm the fun police right now. Please come to the mic if you'd like to and provide your name and what street you reside on, and we'll give you 3 minutes. And then also, if you're not sure if you've fallen to either bucket, we have some time set aside for commentary, testimony of a general nature that we can read into the record. So, hello, stranger. Please let us know your name, what street you reside on, and share your thoughts.
Victoria Seaver, Lily Street. I'm on the other side of the coin. So while it seems to be human nature to blame a handy target for a shrinking pocketbook, we can't expect grocers to sell at a loss or doctors to work free or cities to do it all on a tight budget, which the minimal allowed 3% increase won't even keep up with inflation. And city services are not just patching streets and flushing toilets if it's a city worth calling home. A city is function and community. A budget is more than divvying up dollars. Per usual, for my at least 10th time, I attended the annual budget workshop, and I continue to be impressed with the high caliber work and dedication of city employees at all levels, despite decreasing funding and increasing costs. Many line items found ways to cut back, defer, or sustain at present levels, and to be expected, others did increase or necessarily were added to the list. Overall, I find the proposed budget acceptable, and I am grateful for the hard work it achieves. I'll specifically mention 4 items that the public has been noting. First East City Park stage, obviously it can't be built for what it was many decades ago. Stage use these days exceeds the number of uses and technical complexity than before. The new build will address a number of issues and honor the value of the former stage and has considered public input. The park has earned a showcase the stage represents and attracts income for the town. 2, climate mitigation. I encourage the city to continue exploring potentials for city and community solar projects and conservation, increase city ops electrification, and further fuel reduction savings. 3, affordable housing, a very complex national issue that cannot be solved at the city level. Rash or short-sighted decisions will exasperate the problem. Runaway development can displace or devalue current residents' home investments and town character. So be creative, wise, and fair to avert any net loss on multiple levels. 4, making progress in phases toward fixing up and revitalizing the downtown streetscape is materially necessary, like safety, and economically advantageous. And it can significantly contribute to our cultural experiences and regional identity. And don't forget to flush the toilet.
Thank you, Victoria. Anyone else like to come? Please reintroduce yourself. Tell us what street you live on, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is David Pimentel. I live at 123 North Hayes Street, 1 block from East City Park. And we hear what goes on in East City Park, and we can't get away from it. But it is, and I could be here complaining about that, but I'm not, because the arts and culture in this city are important, and I want to express my support for keeping that in the budget. I think we've heard some concerns here about allocation and priorities, and I understand all of that, and I certainly am sympathetic to those concerns, but it is a way too easy a solution to say, oh, well, let's just cut the arts. Who really needs that anyway? It's just aesthetics. Well, the quality of our life in this town and the value of our property in this town and the economic benefit that this town gets from bringing people in for arts events and to participate in what Moscow has to offer are benefits that may be difficult to quantify, but they are no less important. This East City Park needs a stage. This very week, my wife and I are driving all the way up to Spokane to see Shakespeare in the Park, because we never have Shakespeare in the Park in Moscow. If there ever was a town that needed Shakespeare in the Park, it is Moscow. But why doesn't the Shakespeare in the Park company come to Moscow? We don't have a stage that accommodate that, and we need one. I think our previous stage fell into disrepair because it was assumed we were fine. Well, we need to invest. We need to invest in our resources. We need to invest in our infrastructure to keep things good. We don't want to wait until they collapse and then look for solutions. However it's funded, and maybe there are ways to tap private money, and maybe this isn't the best way to fund it. I have no expertise to offer on that, but I wanted to encourage the city council to maintain a priority to keep the arts in our community, to keep culture in our community, and to give us a stage that will expand our opportunities to do good things with our park properties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pimentel. Anyone else like to come? Please introduce yourself and where you reside, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
I don't have my glasses on, so bear with me. Good evening, council, mayor. I came here tonight to say how much I love East City Park. I love that stage. since the spring, I've actually
Wait,
had
Stevie,
the-
what's your name?
Oh, sorry. My name is Stevie Steely Johnson. I reside not in city limits at 1450 Mill Road, Moscow. Since this spring, I've had the opportunity to serve on the committee for East City Park. So I wanted to have everybody rest assured that this has gone through a public process, open meetings. It's been pretty rigorous, a lot of feedback to the engineers doing that work. East City Park is a cornerstone of our community. It's really one of the few places in Moscow that large groups of people can gather. The other place for that would be downtown Moscow. And in that case, it's really not that great for our small businesses in downtown when we have to shut the streets down. If you go down to the Downtown Business Association meetings, they'll tell you all about that. East City Park really gives us another location so that we can have festivals, performances, and community events. I also have a particular interest in rural economic development, and I believe spaces like this matter. Creating spaces where people want to gather, connect, and spend time is part of building a vibrant community and a strong local economy. This project also isn't simply replacing an old stage. This project has been ongoing. In 2013, I think the bathrooms were built. And when those bathrooms were built, it was the intent that the stage would go on the back side of those bathrooms. So this has been an ongoing process. The new stage will allow the park to accommodate a broader range of activities and serve more of our community members for decades to come. I understand that this is a significant investment, and it's definitely appropriate to ask questions about the cost. But from my perspective, both as a user of this space and someone who has participated in the process, the city has been through thoughtful and thorough consideration. Thanks. I absolutely believe that public safety has to be adequately funded. But I also think it's important to recognize that these are different financial decisions, and it's council's choice to balance those to create a community that we want to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steely Johnson. Appreciate it. Okay, any other folks who would like to take up to 3 minutes to provide public commentary in support of the recommendations before us? Wow, to the audience at home, the line's out the door. Okay. Okay. So now we'll still use the 3 minutes, 3-minute increments. If anyone would like to come and provide commentary of a neutral nature to go on record for the public hearing of the fiscal year 2027 budget, please come to the mic, introduce yourself, what street you reside on, and I'll hit start on the 3 minutes once you get up there.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Dawes. I've lived at 1018 East E Street for 53 years. I would ask that Mr. Belknap, could you take the slideshow back to a slide beyond, can we go back in the slides or not? We can't do that.
What are you,
I saw something briefly and I didn't get a chance to read it, and it has to do with what I want to talk about. But it's okay. I can do it without.
Go without, and then if council
Okay.
during our deliberation, if you want, hopefully we can get enough from your comments, Kathy, to know where we're
Sure.
headed.
Okay. I have to agree with people on both sides of the aisle here in terms of their concerns and their support. I truly do support the arts here and feel that we should be. And I also understand the concerns about safety, public safety. And I want to point out that with the police officer reductions, the forensic detective position being terminated, that the street funding has been down, is all due to the state decisions at the legislative level. And I want everybody to be aware of the fact that we all have input we can give to our legislators about this. The point I'm really trying to make is that this council is under a lot of restrictions that have been placed on them by our legislature. And I admire your ability to do the best you can to put together a budget that is minimally increasing our costs and trying to maintain the character of our city. And I thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else like to come up to provide commentary in a, what did I say, neutral nature? Stefan, do you want to come up? Mr. Haney? I saw that you don't have to. I saw the slow creep forward and was going to welcome
3
it.
minutes for the record. It'll
Sure.
be fun. So my name is Stephan Haney. I live at on Pavel Court, where my lot is on the city boundary, and then I have a residence that my college students from my house live in Orchard in the city. First of all, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have gone through the budget, all 350 some odd pages of it, and for this year, last year, and prior years. And I know the work involved to do so, and thank you for the work to do so. Thank you, Mr. Belknap. It's a functional budget, and I know the work involved with the process and the department. And so thank you for all that work. This is a neutral comment, and so it's very much, first of all, thank you, because budgets reflect priorities, and it's a functional budget. Moscow is a great place to live, work, and play. While we may be looking at the tensions of the $60 million and how we're going to try to get as much as we can out of it, and we can get a lot out of it, and there's preferences. Some people would want more of this and more of that. It's a budget, and it's functional, and we'll do the best with what we got. That said, there are things in the budget that I would have loved to have seen that would equip, I think, Mr. Belknap as well as you for better decisions from the future. I don't believe we've had an economic impact study in the city of Moscow or in Latah County since pre-COVID. Last one I saw was somewhere around 2014, 2016. So while we may decry the economic impact of revenue from the tax exempt, the economic impact of all those students coming in is a pretty good offset. Also, the amount of businesses coming in is not only SEL, but there have been other new businesses, not only the big box stores, but also manufacturing jobs like Tennecore that bought the Appaloosa Horse Museum and provides dozens of jobs on the way to hundreds of jobs, or Maddox, and having more of those facts as potential options for future revenue. While I'm encouraged by the housing starts, we're still not back to levels from years ago, and there's economic impact that showed there. So the economic impact study was something I would have loved to have seen to equip you in the future for more facts. I do think there's opportunities. I also, like Mr. Slegboom, other people here, I'm part of our remote tech worker segment, and the investments and things, the opportunities for efficiencies and continued efficiencies, structural changes to our budget to equip both Mr. Belknap and the city and yourself, whether it be with AI and AI opportunities, is where efficiencies are. That's how U of I and other both universities and companies are dealing with constraints, because everybody's facing them. Would love to have seen some of those kind of things in the budget. So all that said, Moscow is a great place to live, work, and play. We do punch above our weight. We have all these many things to be proud of. Thank you, and I hope we can get to a good budget to keep making it better.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Haney. Okay. Anyone else with testimony of a general nature? Okay. I'm about to close the public hearing unless someone raises their hand. Actually, I guess I do close it before we go to deliberation, right? Okay. So we're closing at 8:42 based on that clock. So this goes to council deliberation. Let me turn off my timer. How are we? Let me just check in. How are we doing? Are we good to go straight into deliberation? We are under the hour. We started at 7:55. We closed the hearing at 8:42. Are we okay to go into deliberation? Can I get some thumbs up? Can I get some consensus, or does anyone?
I'd be happy to stand up for 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm only like scanning the audience because we had some young families. If it's okay with you, my suggestion would be let us go through this item, and then between item 3 and 4, before we go through the fee resolution, we'll take a 5-minute break. Everyone okay with that? Because I would like to stand up too, Evan, but I just, in the interest of making sure that we're respecting your evening time, and not losing whatever thoughts we have been processing, let us get through this item first. So with that, council, deliberate. Great. Wave me down. Who would like to go first? Anyone? No pressure. Scott's
Sure.
Great.
I would
Okay,
love
Scott.
to go first.
Deliberate.
I appreciate your guys' comments. As anything that we deal with, there's always a balance. I mean, we talk about affordable housing, and there's a balance. It's like, what are you going to give up to achieve affordable housing? Are we going to get rid of parking? And some people say absolutely not. There's parking's a huge issue. So every time we look at any topic when we're dealing with the city, there's always a balance. And I appreciate the fiscal responsibility side, and also people speaking of the quality of life. And so that's the thing I think that we up here are trying to balance. I live across the street from East City Park. I see the many events and people that utilize that park. I've been hounding. I finally got the basketball light on. If anybody drives by Hayes Street, the basketball light is on, and it should not burn out anymore. So I am a huge fan of East City Park, the events and the things that I am able to attend, and the things that there are events that I don't support, but there are amazing things that people get to use the park for. And so I think it's a great resource for our community. I grew up in Moscow. I remember the stage of what it used to be 30 years ago. And it is a shell. I mean, there was bathrooms, there's the back room, there are doors, there's cover. I mean, it is barely hanging on from what it used to be. So I'm excited for the community and the unscripted use of the people who come do the country dancing and the line dancing and all those things that people use. That's not huge events. I think it's something that I'm looking forward to. As far as I believe our, some of the safety, our fire rating is consistent with all the communities around us. We do a fantastic job. Our staff, our volunteers, it's a program that you couldn't start today. But it provides, and it continues to provide us great service. And we've added to the full-time staff in the last handful of years. We've added more full-time staff to that. One of the things about the stage, and I heard some volunteers, any public project that the city does is open to a public bid, and they have to take the lowest responsible bid. So there is nothing in there that says that if somebody wants to come through and do the concrete for cheaper than anybody else, and they put a team together, a public works team that has it, we could get that cheaper. So anybody that wants to volunteer and they said they can donate this part or asphalt or concrete, like there's still an opportunity for that. Like that, there are things that we can do just because that budget number is there. And if volunteers want to get together with a contractor and figure out a way to do it cheaper, by no means are we stopping that. We do, as I'll speak for myself, but I believe for the stage, we want to get the highest bang for our buck when if the bids come in and is a responsible dollar and we decide to spend it, like that's what we're hoping to do. And so it's not like we're saying we're going to spend that money regardless of, the volunteers or people or whatever the numbers come in. So I would love for the community to get together and figure out a way to build this.
And Scott, can I help chime in with a couple of
Absolutely.
those things? So again, we will have I can't wait to see all your smiling faces back here when the bid awards for the East City Park stage come back to us for further deliberation. But there are ways for the city to accept financial donations. It does get trickier in regards to materials because we are required, Idaho Code 67-2805, since I want to cite my sources, public works construction projects in excess of $100,000, we have to follow specific bid advertisement processes, and it can be tricky depending on if we award a bid and who we award it to. Accepting donated materials or services can get messy. However, but I want to clarify we are able to accept financial donations. The city did pursue a grant, one of the only grants that we found that would qualify for something like this, and we were not awarded it. But mind you, there are a plethora. That means a lot. That's a joke. There are a lot of options that we have to fund things like streets through other grant programs. Things like the stage are not as easy for us to fund, but we're happy to have a conversation. It is important that we make sure that I don't want to get in trouble with the state. So yes, and with a small asterisk next to it. So carry on.
No prevailing wage, so that's not
Yeah,
unless it's
fair
federally
enough,
funded.
fair enough, fair enough.
There's a lot of things that we can do. Sorry, I have only like 5 notes on here and I lost track. No, I would just say, it's just a, balancing act. And I think we still have to appreciate some of the things that just bring us together as a community and the spaces that do that. And we can't neglect those because some of them, like the stage, I mean, we have kind of neglected and it's to the point where it is now. So we just always have to keep track of that balance.
Else like to, yes, Sage, deliberate away.
Yeah, so thank you, firstly, everyone, for your input. We've been getting emails about this, largely in opposition for several weeks. It was nice to get some emails in favor as well, just to get kind of a deeper width and depth of the issues that we're trying to kind of balance out, like Scott touched on. And I want to tell a brief story that that I was reminded of in consideration of all this information. And it pertains to the police station project and the bond that was put out for that. So personally, I was not initially in favor of that proposed police station. I felt that that kind of expenditure for that kind of capital project was, a crazy high use of funds, that the existing structure was perfectly operable for our police station. And frankly, I was persuaded during that process to support that, and I did vote in favor of it. And one of the reasons that I voted for it is because there was also some money earmarked for improvements to other spaces, relocation of other city offices, among other capital and facility improvements. And so when I think in hindsight about that police station and the timing of it, it seemed monstrously expensive and to me unnecessary at the time. And now in hindsight, many years later, I'm so glad that was done. It was a good investment in our police services and in the individuals that have helped keep Moscow safe. And I'm kind of reminded of that when I think about the project and the funds related to the East City Park stage. It seems expensive now. I cannot imagine what that police station bond could have looked like if it was on the ballot for this November, right? If it had been put off and we would have been considering it now versus the nearly 10 years ago that it was considered. So I just wanted to tell that little story. I think we're in this balancing act of battling inflation that seems to be ever increasing year by year, and also trying to assess what's important today, right? And the city of Moscow is the heart of the arts, but we also want our streets to be safe and operable, right? We don't want our infrastructure to crumble. I appreciate a lot of the perspective that we've gotten tonight about things that are working and not working well. I think I'll remind us as well that we may approve this budget and then at some future stage amend it. That this is iterative. We have meetings twice a month for good reason, and these are not completely 100% firm, set in stone for.
If the legislature
next year.
changes something in code, yeah, that triggers a change. The change will be made. Yeah.
Right. So, sorry if my comments were lengthy, but and sort of obtuse, but that's just my perspective looking at this budget. We've spent a lot of time looking over this. Staff has spent a lot of time answering questions, and I just wanted to share my thoughts overall. Again, appreciative of all the information we've gotten to this point, and continue to talk about.
Thanks, Sage.
Yeah.
Bryce, Sandra, Evan, anyone?
Should we just go down the line?
I can let council president and vice president have dibs on last remarks if you want. So he claims last. I'll allow that. Do you want to go now, or do you want to
Sandra, do you have?
Okay, Sandra, and then we'll wrap it up with our council vice president and president, if that's okay. Sandra.
Thank you very much. I don't remember what year it was that we made Indigenous Peoples Day an event. It was a while ago. It was before I was on council. I was on the Human Rights Commission. And it was the first time I ever spoke in council chambers. And we were talking to a group that didn't want to do it, right? It was kind of a group of guys up here that seemed set in their ways and they didn't want to change it and they didn't want to listen to us. And we got up and just like y'all did, we had a chance to say what we were in favor for. Some said they didn't want to do it. And I remember there was a line of us we went through and I remember speaking and looking up here and they felt like they weren't getting any feedback and it was okay because we said what we wanted to say and went on with it. Later that week, one of those councilmen who I talked to casually on the street every now and again to kind of wave, he said, "Hey, thanks for talking about that. I still don't agree with you, but I liked what you said." I was like, wow, I felt like it was kind of a breakthrough. I really appreciated that he said that. And so I say that in that same vein. I do appreciate the words that are said. For, against, neutral. It takes courage to come up and talk. So thank you for that and for having the courage to be here and the strength for being here. I am passionate about these things. I don't like that we're not able to fund things. I hate when I drive down a street and that I can't get by because it's too narrow for all the cars parked on each side. And you have to figure out how am I going to pull over in my little bitty Subaru. It's frustrating. And I can say those are things that we're working on. It's a long process. I walk my dog all over town and the sidewalks are not great when we have the sidewalks. Grateful for the sidewalks. They're not great. I know it's up to the homeowners and it's a tough time for homeowners to be fixing their sidewalks. But I worry about it all the time when I walk my dog because I'm getting older. And I tell you what, I already need shoulder replacement. If I fall, that's really, really going to hurt. Not just hurt like it did when I was in my 30s, right? It's going to be awful. One of you might have to pick me up. And John, I know you would. I walk by John's house all the time. So I say that in the vein of there are a lot of things going on in town. And a lot of important things. And the streets are important, you bet. We have money set aside every year, work on streets. And I know you're like, you should do more. I wish we could. It's important to make this a good community. And several people said, we love the park. It can be an economic boost. We have a lot of things here. The gentleman that talked about having Shakespeare in the Park left, but I miss that too. There aren't many things I like about Boise. In fact, like 2 things, I think, right? And one of them was having Shakespeare in the Park. The other thing's the Bass Museum. That's it. I'm done, right? I grew up down there. That's it. So that would be great. All these things are important. And all these things have been budgeted. And I think we have a sane budget. I think we have a workable budget. I think we worked really hard to make this an affordable budget. I'm also a taxpayer, right? It's also hard. I live with my mom, who's a retired school teacher from Idaho. You know, she's not making a whole lot more. I'm not making much. I understand that it's hard. I also understand that this is a place where we have to do our very best. This budget is not overwhelming. I think this is a good budget. I think it's a solid budget. I think it's a budget we can improve on in the later years. So I'm in favor of this, and I still do appreciate those that spoke out against it. Thank you.
Evan, what would you like to share or deliberate, if at all?
Not gonna get to stretch my legs.
No,
first,
not yet.
I'll stretch my thoughts a little bit instead. I agree with all the testimony. I think you can go through this budget, and I've actually attended budget hearings on and off for city council for more than 30 years. And I can say this about all of them, that never are they as fair as they could be, and never are they as frugal as they could be, and never are they as sensible as they could be. And you've pointed out to me some things I saw in the budget and realized living here about those points and little tweaks we could do that would show that perhaps we have a greater understanding of our deficiencies in those regards. That said, that's one job that the budget does. It points a direction. It tells what, we're thinking about, how we're planning for the town, but it's also a accounting document, a numbers document. And so this is what I always get back to. I'll give a what if we eliminated the 3% tax increase entirely, and we could do that. We could say no tax increase this year. In fact, I'll go better than that. I'll roll back taxes another 3%. So now I've saved Moscow $500,000 that we don't get in taxes. And I think, if we were forced to deal with that, we would and we could. And Bill is scowling, but
that's not fair, Evan.
Yeah.
Keep going.
no. And with 10,000 households in town, you save $50 a household doing that. And that's assuming the households pay all the taxes, and they pay about 60%. So you only save about $30 or $35 a household. Mr. Seward, I appreciate your comments about rents going up. It's not entirely based on taxes and the cost of providing services. It's the amortization of repairs and materials and all that feed into, that going up. So I have to go back to the budget document as a financial document, as a document of numbers, and we can do everything you say about cutting our spending, and we don't save but $25 or $35 per year per household in town. And so it seems like philosophically I'm in agreement with all these deficiencies we can point out. And thanks for bringing them forward, because that tells us what we can work on next. But I always get back to looking at the reality of the numbers and saying, if we take that $500,000 out, we only have a couple areas to cut. And that is parks, rec, and culture, and emergency services and police. And so it would hit them hard. The parks, rec, culture that brings in fees and donations about $750,000 and costs about $3.5 million or more to run that. So when you talk about taking away, the only things we have discretionary use of might be that, we're devastating that. So, and the other choice, and we've made some of those choices in the recent past, is cutting emergency services, because that's what property tax money does. Basically those two things, and also smart transit for a bit. So our public transportation and some other things. So money wise, I'm looking at the budget as being as fair as it can be, as frugal as it can be, and as sensible as can be, despite all those deficiencies in what we see about where money goes and what we're not doing and all that. That's the sum of my look at it. So that's the best of times and it's the worst of times. Charles Dickens would have trouble voting on this.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Evan. Thanks, Evan. Okay, Bryce.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, first and foremost, though, to everybody that spoke tonight for both the positions that you were holding and the courage that you had to come up here and speak. Because as mentioned up here, I know that it's a little daunting. One, just public speaking in general is scary for many. And two, speaking in this context can also be a bit scary. But I also admire your ability and your willingness to come up and speak about something and topics that you're passionate about. So I'm appreciative of everybody that spoke tonight in opposition, in favor, and of a neutral stance as well. So as kind of mentioned from both the presentation early on and some other things that have been set up here, and I'm not going to repeat everything that's been set up here, but one thing that I do really appreciate about this budget process, and now this is my third year on council, is that it doesn't just come at a head tonight, but it does start, as Bill indicated, 10, 12 months ago even. And when it may seem that we're rushing things, or when it may seem that maybe our priorities are out of balance, or we're not really looking in the kind of most focused way possible, what we are able to see up here is that departments and those in charge of putting forth their budgets are looking in a very concerted manner for nearly a year plus into the next fiscal year. And so I'm appreciative of the process, and I think I'm appreciative of the way that we get relayed how these things come about, with the budget coming out, which is open to the public in June, and then our budget workshop in July, which I know is a daunting ask of, if you want to come watch it, you may have to take a day off work. So I know that that's not able for everybody, and I recognize that. But in that budget workshop is our chance to really kind of dissect line by line what we see. And even this year, we spent a good amount of time reducing most, if not every commission's budget that was asked, that we reduced what they had asked. And so we did look prudently at where we could kind of cut potentially extemporaneous spending. We also have other questions, I think, moving forward as it relates to the budget that many of you raised, especially in opposition, that those questions will not go away. And one of which I have, and it was echoed earlier, is I am curious about the $130,000 Parks and Rec study. I will find out more about that and be curious of what conversations can be had, because I would like to know more, because that did take me by surprise when that came up. And there are those things that through this process, and I know that I'm focusing a lot on the process, but that's what this is, for us to get knowledgeable, for us to get aware of what these numbers suggest, and then how those numbers suggest where we move forward within each of those departments in each of those categories. And so all that being said, I'm grateful for the work that our city employees put in to kind of work this out in this process. And the work that's done in accounting, the work that's done within sewer and streets, parks and culture, et cetera, across the board, this isn't done lightly. This isn't done in a haphazard way. And so I do respect that process. I respect our ability to have the input that we did back in July. And I also respect your willingness, as you came forward tonight, to voice either your opposition, your favor, or your kind of neutral approach as well. And so with that, I do think that the budget that we are seeing, it reflects my experience the last couple of years, where, we are trying to do a lot with a little. And I think that as a city, for all of the things that we want to prioritize, and maybe we have differing opinions on what ought to be prioritized more than others, I think that this budget does present a really well thought out and really concrete approach to direct our city forward for the next year.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, Drew, what would you like to deliberate on? Share your thoughts.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here at 9 o'clock at night, and I'd be here until 12 o'clock if necessary, or 1 in the morning, even though I started my workday at 5 a.m. I appreciate those that have came, like many other counselors have mentioned. This isn't the first time I've said this statement, but to me, I'm grateful to live in a country where we can have disagreement, and it's critical to our democracy. And I'm glad that we have factions for people to show up and to raise concern, or to just come and make comment. That is critical, and those things are heard. Part of this is from your perspective and our perspective. A couple years ago, I was back in Washington, D.C., advocating behalf of for my profession, and made connections. And during that time, wrote a couple emails that back to our people that represent us back in DC. And I had feedback that, and I was not surprised, but I'm surprised that they recognized I was there earlier that year. And they made the comment, and they made the suggestion, and it was a hard medicine for me there, but I think it's applicable now, that they're like, hey, you got to know us. Why did you write an already scripted email and send it to us? Why? You're a brilliant person. Not my words, their words. Because I don't think I'm brilliant and just stubborn. But why, why don't you craft your own email and tell us your concerns instead of copy and paste? And I think that's applicable here. We've heard many things, opposition, encouragement, and some of these things are scripted and sent out. And I'm glad that you've reached out and done those things. And I think that's important. But writing your own words is often, we get a lot of these things, a lot of these emails, and they'll always be encouraged no matter how we get them. And I'm not disencouraging that, by any shape of the imagination, but that was good information that I have now applied when talking and making relationships with those in Congress. I do also want to, along those lines, I do appreciate Mr. Haney's testimony here this evening and his comments to that. With all the council members here, we will always, I think, eternally disagree with each other. And no matter what the decision is, because I am one voice out of 6. I know there's 7 up here, but Madam Mayor doesn't.
Only in case of a tie.
Yeah, only in
Yep,
case
yep.
of a tie. But with that, I do recognize the work that has been going on, just not during this meeting. It takes a lot of work to get to where we're at. And I do thank staff and everything that they've done, those that are present in the meeting and those that are not. I have learned, I come from the private world, the private practice. Being a public servant is not an easy job. And you are always underneath the microscope when people frequently like to call you incompetent. And that is, so I appreciate them and doing professional work on a daily basis, despite all the many things that they are called. Because I think I will say that I think they're brilliant. And we are doing a lot with a little. This a budget that stands before us tonight, like I said, makes up a lot of work that we've done, and I am glad that we've had this agreement, and I'll close my comments with that. So
Thank you. And I'll add a couple of things before we entertain a motion, because I know the glassy eyes are coming in. So a couple of things I just want to clarify. So my job is to make sure that we have a staff that we are proud of, that responds to our citizens' needs, and the staff that is adequately and fairly compensated. So we are an employer in the same way that we are a service provider. And just like a private business's ability to pay their staff and provide benefits has gotten difficult with all the macroeconomics of how private health insurance, public health insurance, all of those things work. Percy for us, all those changes, that whole package of us being an appealing place to work to make sure that you are getting the best services as citizens still apply. So my number one concern is making sure that our staff are being adequately compensated, and it really stinks. I don't have a better adjective in mind right now that we aren't able to give a full COLA increase in this budget. And we know that there are other state agencies who are having to hold back on their raises, and it's been tricky. But my number one priority is to make sure that our folks are adequately paid, because if you don't have a strong team, we don't have strong services. So just context there. Utility rate increases. One of the emails that I think was scripted that I saw pretty often that didn't have a whole lot of variation talked about stormwater increase, water increase, and sewer rate increase. And I just want to clarify, while that is in this budget, those numbers play into here. All of those also have separate public hearings. And those hearings have happened, and we've had maybe 1 or 2 people in the room, but they're utility rate studies that have been driven by citizen panels with input from the public sector, the private sector, multifamily use, staff, all of this. So I just want to clarify, those percentages sound scary. If you want to give input on those, keep an eye on the agendas, because there are, or email me and I'll give you the link to the long studies. But those things are thought with intention. And we also have a legal obligation to make sure we are not charging for services beyond what we can justify for what the cost of doing business is and what we need to save for our utility improvements. Fire was talked about some. I see you in the back. So I also want to clarify the Moscow Volunteer Fire Department. We are not the only, there is a taxing district that is the Moscow Rural Fire Department, and that is a separate taxing district. We do not have authority over them. And so they do they do anything, their footprint is anything outside of city limits. And so I also encourage you, their meetings are public if you want to attend those meetings as well. Fire is of significant concern. And lastly, on the police comment, so the removal of that funding for the forensic detective position, Ms. Dawes is correct that it was for a specialized forensic detective that was the Internet Crimes Against Children task force. And we worked really closely with the Idaho State Attorney General's office, and through some changes that are way above my pay grade, even after I went and met with the folks in Boise who gave us the news, that position is being relocated to Coeur d'Alene, even though our stats were really incredible and we were doing a lot to provide and lend support even for the cases that were coming out of Kootenai County. So yeah, there are changes that are out of our control, including the street funding reduction is because of the reduction in state funding for street and road improvements. So just want to clarify that. So we worked hard on the budget. I give the budget, staff advises me, I give direction. Staff then puts all of our suggested changes in a bundle and council gets their say and the public gets their say. I'm glad you're here. I am sure there are a handful of people either watching at home or in the room now who don't feel heard. And I don't know what other words I can use other than to say, thank you for being here. Please, this is a long process. We would love to have you in the audience as many Monday nights. They don't usually go this long. They don't always go this long, but a lot of the other conversation that we have would help give context to all of the remarks that were given that are signaling support for the budget as presented. So with that, does anyone feel moved? We do, and just a reminder, we do have we have 3 action items proposed and I need to go one by one, right? So Evan.
I'd be happy to recommend approval of the general budget minus the $130,000 for the Parks Master Plan, because I'm like Bryce, I don't know why that is anyway, we could talk about that a long time. So that would be my motion, that we, short of that, approve the budget as presented.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, but for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, motion and a second. Further discussion before we go to vote. I'm going to give, you guys have 3 minutes. Like I'm giving you 3 minutes and then we're going to vote on this motion because I imagine there may be some other votes. Yes.
Provide more context.
That's exactly where I was going to.
Great.
Yeah.
Bill.
Well, my first question was going to be, we kind of need to go in order. So the foregone resolution needs to happen first because the budget's kind of predicated on that foregone amount. It's not,
Gotcha.
as long as you pass the resolution tonight, it's okay. But just understanding if you're going to approve the budget kind of as presented, you're going to be obligating yourself to pass that resolution. So generally we'd like you to start with the foregone first to confirm that you want to.
And so this is where I say, as per Robert's rules, this is were to be a question of privilege. We are out of order, and so it
Yeah,
is
I'll
an invalid.
withdraw. I'll
Okay,
withdraw my
great.
motion.
I got my cheat sheet, guys. I want to
Say
make the Girl
that,
Scouts
sure,
proud.
we'll withdraw the second.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so
Okay.
Yep.
And then-
Excellent.
and then
Thank you
I
for the
will-
clarification.
Then I will move to approve the foregone tax recovery resolution.
Second.
Motion from Bryce, second from Drew. Further discussion on that motion. Okay. Sage.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So item number 1 of 3 has been addressed. Great. And so Bill, is this where if Evan wanted to revisit this
Sure.
on item 2? Okay, so just to clarify, if you're not reading along on our handy dandy script, what would come next in order is approving the appropriation ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that be read by title and published by summary, or consider the ordinance on first reading and that it be read by title, or reject it, or take other action. So, Evan, I think this would fall under proposed other action.
Yeah, and there's
So-
2 ways we can go with this. So what I'll do is I'll move that we accept the budget as presented on first reading minus the $130,000 designated for the Parks Master Plan.
And
So
can-
first reading and minus the,
And to clarify, if we go on first reading, what that means for us is we still have second and third reading, right?
Yep,
So-
you'd have 3 readings. You could suspend the third on the second reading. So if you want to pass a budget on first reading and then request staff to amend the budget to remove the $130,000 expenditure for the Parks Rec master plan. That would be my preference. Then staff could amend the budget before the second reading, and then you would have that before you to pass on third reading at that next meeting. We really only have one meeting opportunity.
I was going to ask, what is our deadline required by state code for when we have to have everything buttoned up for the county?
So September 10th is when we have to notify and certify the levy amount. Our next meeting would be, we have a meeting on September 7th. So you could do the second and third. Essentially, you pass on the second, suspending the third on the September 7th.
I think it's the 8th.
Is it? Okay, sorry.
I think Labor Day's on the
Oh, yep, we got the
7th.
Liberty Weekend.
So
So,
meeting- okay.
It's a Tuesday.
but we would just do it on that meeting, and we could modify the budget however the council, whatever the motion ends up being, whatever the council's desire, we can make that amendment for your consideration. It really doesn't change anything because that 130 was being transferred from the Capital Projects Fund to the Art, Rec, and Culture Fund to fund that expense there.
So it would, okay.
So essentially that we just wouldn't transfer that 130,000 to Rec and Culture would be the change.
Okay.
So if I may, then that would give us that amount of time to learn more about that and discuss it. And
Okay. So that's, is that we said this is what we're going to do. So okay. So let's get through. Evan, would you like to make an official motion and then we can see if there's a second and then go to discussion?
And I did. I'll repeat that motion that we accept the budget as presented on first reading, with the exception of removing the $130,000 designated for the Parks and Rec master plan.
I have a motion from Evan. Is there a second? Going once, going twice. Okay, the motion fails for lack of a second. Other motions, action folks would like to take. Someone wave me down. Sage.
Move to approve the appropriation ordinance. Let's see, where am I reading?
You're on the right one, yeah.
Under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, then it be read by title and published by summary.
And then you can stop at the or if you're good with third reading. Everything else, there's your other menu of options. So if so if you're
Okay.
good with passing on third reading under suspension of the rules. That's the end of your.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, motion from Sage.
Budget
As presented, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Motion from Sage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sandra. Discussion deliberation. Okay, thanks for hanging in there, everybody. We'll go to vote then. Let's go to Sandra.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Evan.
Nay.
Bryce.
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Awesome, thank you. And then we have a third item before us, which gives me the chance to, oh, that part. I even had my cheat sheet ready to go. Sorry, everybody. Right, the whole read by title thing is the rule that I have to play by. Yikes, guys, sorry. Jeopardy theme song, anybody? Okay, here we go. Pull it up. It's a very large agenda packet, so it doesn't really want to. Here we go. Haha, resolution. Nope. Thank you. Oh, and it's a long title too. Okay, here we go. Let me make a note that 2026-05, right? Thank you. Reads, an ordinance entitled Annual Appropriation Ordinance appropriating $149,942,154 for the purpose of defraying all necessary expenses and liabilities of the City of Moscow, Latah County, State of Idaho for the 2027 fiscal year beginning the first day of October 2026 and ending the 30th day of September 2027, and allotting resources by fund for said appropriation for the objects and purposes set forth in this ordinance, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm just going to make a note that 2026-5 is now claimed as an ordinance number, budget ordinance. Great. Okay, a third thing on our list before we'll go to a 5-minute recess is up for grabs. Sandra.
I move we authorize the mayor's execution of the L2 property tax certification in the aggregate amount of $9,445,604.
Second.
Motion from Sandra, second from Sage. Further discussion? Okay. Scott,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Sage,
Aye.
and Drew.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back at 9:28 for item 4, which is the other public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 27 fruit resolution. And before I smack the gavel, thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging in with us. And we look forward to continuing a dialogue about civil discourse and fiscal responsibility. So thanks. Thanks, Corey. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we are proceeding with item 4 on our regular agenda, which is the public hearing for proposed fiscal year 2027 fee resolution, and Bill will walk us through that as well. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Your Honor. So just a little bit of background, any new fees or increase to existing fees by more than 5% requires a public hearing pursuant to Idaho Code 63-1311A. We have a wide variety. I'll kind of go through a summary of the proposed changes, but we always have this public hearing just because there's typically a new fee or two, or there's an increase that may exceed that 5% threshold. The fees city charges must be reasonably related to the actual cost of the services provided, and the fee increases, really the majority of these are either due to utility rate studies that are looking at the operational costs and the capital needs of a utility, or just inflationary costs for personnel expenses. So between the 2% COLA and 2% performance and 28.6% on insurance, personnel costs as a whole probably have gone up 6 or 7% this upcoming fiscal year. So most of those are intended to address those increases. So I'll just kind of run through. So it's a fairly, it's about a 44-page document, so I'm not going to go through every individual one in detail, but just kind of address in generality. Arts programming fees have increased by just slightly underneath 5%, or proposed to be increased by just under 5%. In the community development department, there are certain valuations that are not published underneath the International Code Council. So there's some decks, porches, unfinished basements. And so those are evaluations we set to determine what the permit fee should be for those types of projects. So those valuations are proposed to be increased between 4 and 5%. We did add a new fee for inspections outside of normal business hours. We have on some larger projects, or if it's Gritman had a trauma center project that they wanted Sunday inspections, so we added a fee to cover a after hours weekend inspection. We're going to have to generally pay an employee overtime to perform that. So there was a new fee added for inspections outside of normal business hours. We actually occasionally we see reductions. So we had some new process efficiencies. So we did have a reduction in right-of-way permit fees and right-of-way vacation requests due to those efficiencies as we looked at the cost of processing those. We also took the right-of-way closure fees that were previously located in the streets department, and those were relocated to the community development department because that's where essentially the funds are collected. So that those aren't new fees. They kind of look like new fees because they're shown as being red underlined, but they're actually just relocated from the streets department section of the fee resolution. Community events, select fees are being proposed to be increased between 4 and 5%. Underneath recreation, again, recreation program fees are proposed to be increased between 4 and 5%. They also added a number of new programs, Dirt Detectives, Outdoor 3D Sculpture Workshop, and the Youth Racket Sports Camp. So there's some new programs, and so when we have those are added as new fees to the fee resolution. Parks and facilities rentals increased between 4 and 5%. Aquatics fees at the Hamilton Aquatic Low facility increased between 4 and 5%. And then we already kind of touched on this related to the utility fees. As I mentioned, every 5 years we do a utility rate study, and we bring in that FCS as an independent third party to go through and review our operational expenses and capital expenditures, and then to come up with that forecasted future rate structure to be able to meet the revenue requirements for the utilities operations. So this is their recommended 5-year program. So for FY27, as already kind of covered during the budget process, water will be increased by 5.15%, sewer 2.8%, stormwater will see 2 years of 29% increases, then dropping down to 15 and then down to 6. And so you can kind of see the total estimated average residential bill increase over that time period. So again, or you kind of walk through most of these water service rates, again, 5.15%, water meter installation costs increased by 3%. The general facilities fees, which are capacity fees for connecting to the utility system, were increased between 2 and 3%. Sewer, we already covered the variety of customer class increases ranging really from that 2.1% to 6%. Underneath the stormwater, again, 29% rate increase, about $2.50 per month for the average home. Sanitation has actually a slight decrease in mechanical container service rates just to get equity class or get equity between customer class. No increases for residential roll carts. We also just miscellaneous fees on sanitation are proposed to be increased between 1 and 2.5%. For streets, we had parade fees were increased by 3%. Traffic device rental fees increased by 3%. And that's kind of the highlights. Happy to answer any specific questions you might have. Staff's recommendation is this evening is to conduct a public hearing and after considering any testimony presented, approve the FY27 fee resolution as proposed. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Any questions before we switch to opening the public hearing? Sage.
Yeah. Bill, thank you for that info. With respect to increases in fees for kind of those particular one-off services, so non-utility, do you have any expectation of kind of increases in revenues that we would have really any influence on the budget over, or are they more allocated toward this is the cost to provide this and therefore we're just passing it on?
Yeah, so the fee is based upon the cost of providing the service and adjusting for increased labor costs that the city experiences. Then these are reflected in the budget revenue, the revenue for forecasted revenues that were in the budget that you just approved.
Okay. Sorry if I missed that. I just
Nope,
wanted
that helps.
some clarity. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? And I'll ask Betsy offsides about dirt detectives because I'm very interested. Evan.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I know the study was done in 2025 with projections for really implementing in 2027. Do you think that was accurately anticipating the high rise in costs of fuel and construction costs and all that? So
Yeah, we think the study's recent enough that it captured those trends. We are actually seeing better bid numbers on a number of our heavy construction projects. We are seeing better numbers than we were probably 2 years ago. And so we think, that was just wrapped up, really wrapped up and finalized in April of this year. And so we do think it adequately captures current construction cost and the forecasted inflation rates are included
it's
as
just,
well.
I see that two-year almost lag time between when the study is done, presented, and so I was concerned about that. Thank you.
And if I may,
Sage, sure.
so I actually participated in that utility rate study. I was part of the panel that had those discussions over several meetings. And I recall conversations with FCS and kind of, we talked about the numbers and how they were determined and what kind of timeframes and what sort of capital projects were needed long-term, prioritizing pump stations and things like that. So, it was largely with respect to, hey, we could, leverage, we kind of have, all these different scenarios. We can leverage debt and our fees could look like this, or we could do, no increases, but look at increases at a future time, or we could try to front load it so that the costs are lower to residents at a future time. So we, just for some light context as to the length of these conversations and the depth that FCS provides, in these meetings, FCS would go over a presentation that's an hour and a half long, and then we would discuss for roughly another hour to hour and a half.
And FCS being a third party
They're the consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just know that there is a lot of conversation and context even that goes into the decisions surrounding those utility rates. And, with input forecasts as they may be, I felt like it was a good group of people to discuss the challenges, realtors and property managers and administrators with the university sort of among that crowd. And it was a great, very deep, very lengthy discussion. So I just want to add that context.
And I have one question, but does anyone else have questions for Bill before? I just noticed, this is on me, the Hamilton Low Aquatic Center daily fees. I remember us trying to make an effort to round it to like the nearest quarter or something for easy transactions. And the draft shows 651, 849, and 651. Am I looking at the wrong version?
No, that would be because some of them have tax. So if it has tax,
Mm,
then
yep.
it's gonna have an odd number.
Okay.
So
When it's taxed, it'll make it even.
for the benefit of the audience that didn't hear Sarah's explanation, we tried to make these transactions, that the taxable transactions, that once tax is applied, it would round to an even nickel.
Got it. So
So that's why those are odd.
Because when I go
Non-taxable
and-
sales, then we rounded to the nearest nickel.
Great. But it's, yeah, seeing it side by side when it was 625 in the last fee resolution, I couldn't remember. So, and with all the work we did to, just went, oh my gosh, did I miss that? And I am so glad you had the answer already. So, okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. So with that, if there's no other questions for Bill, we get to use this. I don't use the gavel very often. I don't want to use it very often, but it is kind of fun. So at 9:41, we're going to open the public hearing. Making a note of that. And so same rules apply. Let me get my timer ready. So we'll start with up to 3 minutes. State your name, what street you reside on, and we will start with opposition to the motion, the action in front of us. So introduce yourself, sir, stranger.
Hello, everybody. I suppose you know me by now, but for those who are just tuning in for some deranged reason, my name is John Slagboom, and I live at 924 East A Street. I did not prepare comments. Yeah, you usually see me coming up with written comments, but I came woefully unprepared for this one. But Mr. Sumner, Mr. Misegdich, Mr. Holmes, Ms. Lewis, we all ran on affordable homes and making Moscow a more affordable place to live. Raising the rates for, I'm trying to find it here, I lost it, land use and development fees and construction permit fees and fees related to inspections is going to hurt that. Every single developer I've talked to in Moscow and who builds in Moscow, and I think I've talked to most of them, and the developers, if you're listening, I would love to talk to you, have complained about the cost of fees related to the price of housing. It is detrimental, and I understand we should probably have a minimum set of them, but amidst all the other increases going on, we should probably not raise these. Keep to your campaign promises, I'd ask you. The second thing is, Mr. Sumner, I have a question about the stormwater effects, not on residences, but on businesses. I think businesses bear the higher cost of stormwater fees, and I'd be curious about raising them and the effects that has on commerce. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to provide commentary in opposition of the proposed fee resolution? Going once, going twice. Okay. Anyone who would like to come and provide testimony in favor of the fee resolution for fiscal year 2027? Victoria Seaver, would you like to share? You squeaky. I have one squeaky shoe. One of my two shoes are squeaky today, and we love that. Okay, tell us who you are, where you live, and what's on your mind.
Victoria Seaver, Lily Street. So this is really short. So the city charges no profit. Fees are at cost, but services are not free, and businesses are not exempt. Most of us only see basic ones: water, sewer, trash, street lights, etc. Studies are done to calculate the rising costs and future needs to save up for. Sometimes there's one I'd specifically address, but none at this time. I appreciate how diligently personnel work to keep costs down as much as possible, and I see that all the time here, and I'm satisfied with the process of setting fees and accept them as presented.
Thank you, Victoria. Would anyone like to? Oh yeah, I don't even have to switch to neutral yet. Hello, please introduce yourself. I'll give you up to 3 minutes. Who you are, where you live, and what your thoughts are on the. Wait, no, in favor. We're doing
Which
in favor.
one are we talking about?
We're going in favor for fee resolution as proposed.
My name is Stevie Steele Johnson. I reside at 1450 Mill Road, Moscow, Idaho, outside of city limits. Isn't it so nice that we have more people talking in positive than negative here? many of you know, my husband Brandon and I run Inland North Waste, that we provide garbage services to the city of Moscow and recycling. We operate the Moscow Recycling Center, and then we also operate the solid waste processing facility that serves the city of Moscow and Latah County as a whole. And I just wanted to say that we go to a lot of different city councils, to the areas that we service, and even areas that we don't service. And Moscow should be so proud. We are so proud of the council and of the staff. And we are so excited to be working with Tyler Palmer. We are so lucky at the city of Moscow to have him. I don't know if you guys saw the job open in Pullman, but I was like, oh my gosh, he better not go over to Pullman. I know from working with Tyler, I know from being on panels before, Adam, who works right downstairs, the city does everything they can to keep rates low. And we do too. We're public servants as well, and we want to keep the rates as low as we can also. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you do. I hope that you pass this fee resolution. Yeah, that's it. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Stevie. Okay, anyone who else who would like to provide remarks on the public record in our public hearing for being in favor of the proposed fiscal year 2027 fee resolution? Going once, going twice. Great. Anyone who would like to provide any remarks of a general nature on the proposed fee resolution? Yes, come on up. Reintroduce yourself. I'll give you 3 minutes. Where you live, have at it.
Hi again. I'm Kathy Dawes, 1018 East E in Moscow. I would really like to have some feedback from council members who have a real experience with building houses, because I know there are at least two and more of you probably. Because I, although I am totally in favor of most of the fees that you're talking about increasing, I do worry about the increased price of housing, that these fees on, especially on land use development fees, construction permit fees, and fees related to inspections will not incentivize construction of more affordable housing, which I'm very much in favor of, especially when we have a supply chain of materials that costs have risen tremendously due to tariffs and manufacturing shortages, et cetera. So I guess what I would like to know is why council members feel that those particular fees are better to raise than not. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, anyone else who would like to provide commentary of a general nature? Neutral nature. Okay, going once, going twice. We will close the public hearing at 9:48 p.m., at least by that clock's watch. Okay, council, deliberate. And please, let me know. Yes, Sage, what would you like to share?
So, Bill, could you perhaps touch on the question of a general nature from Kathy Dawes pertaining to the land use development and construction fees and the increase of those in particular?
So essentially we are setting the fees to be able to recover the cost of providing the service. And so if we do not maintain a fee that is adequate to cover the cost of the service, then we're going to be shifting the cost of that service to taxpayers, not to the individual that's receiving the benefit of the permits and inspections. We do periodically, and last time we did it was in 2024, compare our permit fees to Pullman, Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, Post Falls, and Lewiston. So this one, the latest one was in 24. So at that point in time, building permit fees and utility connection fees for a typical 2,000 square foot home was $12,000. 8,000 of that was the utility connection fees. $7,983 were the utility connection fees. So the building permit was about $4,000 to go through the full construction process and to inspect all aspects of that construction. At that point in time, Pullman was 10,500, so they were about 1,500 below us. I know they were looking at increasing their connection fees, so I don't know if that's changed since '24. Coeur d'Alene, the same home, was 19,000. Sandpoint was 25,000. Post Falls was 27,778, and Lewiston was 16,640. So we're the second lowest out of those comparison cities. And, if you want to subsidize that, somebody has to pay because we all have to have the personnel to perform the service. And so we feel it's appropriate to have the individuals that are receiving the benefit of the service. And again, 8,000 of the 12,000 was just utility connection fees. That's the buying in to get capacity to the system. So that's their charge. 4,000 was the actual building permit inspections.
Okay, that's great context. Thank you, especially relative to other surrounding communities. Could you maybe just break it down a step further for me? So that $8,000 roughly fee, is that paid to a utility contractor provider? I assume that's their fee.
No,
or
the
is
8,000
that-
is ours. So it's
Okay.
it's to buy into the water system and all of the production, conveyance, storage that everybody else has invested in. That is the share of that home, and that GSC is determined through that utility rate study. And it's the same on the sewer side. So that's combined. Both water and sewer at that time was $7,983.55. We don't have any impact fees. So Post Falls was the highest at the $27,788. They had $14,000 of impact fees per home.
Okay.
I think Sandpoint has about 5,300 in impact fees. Coeur d'Alene had 5,780. So
Does Lewiston have impact fees?
Lewiston does not. So their general facility fees for their utility connections was 12,000 compared to our 8.
Okay, thank you.
Other deliberation, questions, comments? Evan?
I can speak a little bit on it to, it's a weak answer, but this is to help Kathy a little bit because I worked in that field up till about 2022 or so, 2023, and as a project manager and a general contractor. And all I'll say is the rise in cost of labor and materials and all that so greatly outpaced the rise in cost of permits that percentage-wise, it almost looks like we lowered the cost of that. That became a less burdensome aspect of doing big remodels, addition, or residential property than it had been before that, which is a little bit of a cop-out in a way, a little bit ironic, but it is true. Percentage-wise, that has dropped as part of building a new house or doing a significant remodel.
Thanks, Evan. Other deliberation or comments, or does someone feel called to make a motion?
I had some
Scott,
comments.
sure.
Sorry. Just going back to Sage. So the GFC is the general facility fees. When we build our sewer station, the wharf, we oversize it because you don't build it for what you have now. You have to compensate and build it for the future. So those GFCs are basically them paying in because we're all paying taxes. We're paying for it. And so it is their contribution to basically buying what we oversized it for. So there's calculations that they went through and said, we're paying for this much. And that's where it's not a magic number.
Mhm.
Like it is, there's some mathing to get that number of how we come up with that. Talking about the permit fees, they got to come from somewhere, or not even just the permit fees, but all the fees that we're talking about are the people who are using them. When we talk about the sewer, water, storm, those are general utilities, the roads that everybody uses, and you can't really get away from it. The fees that we're talking about here are predominantly user fees. They're fees for services that the user, and it's not, appropriate, if you like, to spread it over all the taxpayers when it's the people who are benefiting from it. So as far as, construction, I know it came up with the stormwater fees. It's the same thing. The people who are using them, and stormwater is a new fee, so there are new costs. There's new regulations from the state that are coming down that are driving the stormwater requirements and the stormwater utilities that go along with that. And the city is going to is stuck with the cost of that. Like we have to compensate for that somewhere, and utilizing the size of businesses, parking lots are the number one, I would say, issue that causes issues with stormwater. That's why we have stormwater codes, is because of asphalt pavement, parking lots, concrete. So the biggest parking lots, and they have the most impact on our stormwater, they are paying the most fees. So I think that when you start looking at them on the fees and what we're doing, we're basically just trying to keep up with inflation and what it costs us to do them. It's not really, adjusting them here and there to pick winners and losers. It's really just saying, this is what we're trying to do and provide those services in an equitable way.
Other comments?
I can throw one other quick thing
Okay.
in. The federal, recent federal law that we'll see if it gets funded, that has suggested and in some instances required that we provide some ready-made building plans that are pre-approved, that don't have to go through a repetition of process, will work if we're able to incorporate that through community development and bring it into our system, will allow us to get rid of some of the engineering review and some of the plan review things. So there is some avenues for reducing those fees, but because some of those requirements would be removed through that redundancy.
Drew, what would you like to share?
Yeah, it's good deliberating with all of you tonight. Yeah, thank you for the question. I have done some designing in my day in the Pacific Northwest, actually Western United States. Only state I haven't designed in is California, not by design, but just by opportunity. And my, I work a lot with clients that have where oftentimes we're paying these fees and then being reimbursed for them as we go through these development processes. And Moscow is a great place to develop. I'll just say that. Like it's, I've worked in other places in Idaho. Mr. Belknap just identified our surrounding communities of these things, and let's have some fun, because why not? It's late at night. Like if we were to push this on the taxpayers, then we'd have a mob here saying that we're being unjust doing it that way. And so you just can't please everybody. And development's just expensive. I mean, it's just the reality of where we're at. And there's a price to pay. I recognize using the word affordable housing is also kind of nebulous. Like, well, what does that mean? And I think the general public, from my perspective, if I talk to 5 people about affordable housing today, each one of those 5 people have a different definition of it compared to what literature says. And so when giving definitions, and that's not a call out to anybody, it's just what does that mean? Describing that as, yeah, everyone's aware of that, but there's, from my perspective, very little things we can do. And to the developers of Moscow, thank you for what you do. But yeah, if you think Moscow's expensive, go develop anywhere else in the state or any other country. So.
Okay.
In case the council might find it interesting,
Yeah.
if you were to look at a 12-unit apartment building, our permits and connection fees would be $62,000. In Post Falls, it's $217,000. Sandpoint's $178,000. Coeur d'Alene's $161,000. Lewiston's $99,000. Again, Pullman's a little bit lower at $48,000. And if you're looking at a 20,000 square foot retail building, we would be $67,500. Post Falls, $263,465. Sandpoint, $203,000. Coeur d'Alene, $187,000. Lewiston, $82,000. And Pullman, again, a little bit lower at $45,000. So, yeah, there's a wide variation in permit fees. Impact fees on that commercial building in Post Falls are $197,000. on a 20,000 square foot retail building.
Sorry, 197,000 on top of those permitting fees.
It's part of that 263
Got
I
it.
quoted, but just the impact fee component is 197,000 for the apartment building. The impact fee in Post Falls is 122,000.
Thanks for
Twice
the
our permit fee on the apartment complex, just in the impact fee. So we are
Pretty good, Moscow.
Cool, cool, cool.
Well, with that, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2027 fee resolution as proposed.
Second.
Motion from Bryce, second from Sandra. Further deliberation. Deliberate deliberation. All right. What one haven't I used yet? Sage.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
And it is just a resolution, so I'm not reading anything by title. Okay, great. I would like to suggest that we postpone reports. I think everyone for hanging in with us for that long. Anyone have any burning community events they need to tell us about, since we won't see each other until right after Labor Day?
Happy start of school next Monday.
That part too. Okay.
Lodge Fest this weekend at Plus Divide.
Okay, yes, Lodge Fest. Yep.
I
Sandra.
would say I think the Howling at the Hamilton is on September 13th.
And is worth saving the date for fundraiser for the Hamilton Humane Society of the Palouse. Sage.
There's a longest table event that may happen next month. There are meetings happening in the
Sunday the 13th, and keep your eyes out, and
Keep your eyes
Welcome
out for
Table
that
are your
one.
primary organizers for that. Okay, with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Sandra,
Second.
second from Sage. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Who's going to
10:00.